Mandatory.
Man,
Opening.
to this episode of Skeptic and Ranting, consciousness. Tonight, we talk about the topic that allows us to have topics, or rather, a conversation about conscious
Amy,
organism.
focus.
So gather as many sensory organs as you can and come join us for some fun.
That's Fuckme. Got it? What does that spell?
A hot date. Right there.
Woohoo.
And I want to thank everyone for joining us out there on the inner tubes. If you're feeling fancy, don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. We're a skeptic channel, but the end of our openers will be opening up the floodgates for the open mic portion of the podcast, meaning anyone can come join us and say what's on their mind. We'll also give everyone the chance to have their own opening and closing statements, atheist or theist, liberal or conservative, come as you are, just on the sheets.
Nah.
And with that, consciousness. Something so familiar, yet so strange. If you're listening to my voice right now, chances are good that you're a conscious agent. With every word I speak, every sentence that I build, I am hoping that I can effectively communicate my thoughts from my brain to your brain. But what exactly is a conscious agent? And why is there a experiential component to our lives at all? Experiential. English. For this question to be answered, we must ask ourselves one last question. Why would our cells need consciousness in the first place? To answer this, I believe it takes us back to biology. This is because consciousness is a mechanism of the brain, a mechanism in a similar vein to digestion. And by a mechanism, I mean a system of parts working together to have a new emerging property, which is something we hear often when speaking about consciousness. And what they mean by that is that no single neuron seems to be in charge of our overall thoughts. Instead, it is an actual network of neurons coming together so that we can get our operating system up and running, which is what our mind appears to be, specifically a system that allows us to operate on the macroscopic landscape, including the collection of sensory data, the ability to move in real time, and to utilize memory storage. However, with so many different terms on the table, I would like to quickly go over a 5-step model I am proposing for how we go from something physical, like our brains, all the way to abstract concepts like introspection. Let us begin with the brain. The brain is our first step, being the hardware or the physical substrate which connects us to the world. Our brain specifically has some of the, I messed that up. Our brain is filled with neurons, each one taking almost 10 times the amount of power than other cells. So what exactly do these hungry little neurons do with all this energy? Well, the electrical signals traveling through our neurological pathways are what take us to the second stage, or the software layer of the model. And the mind has a busy job to do, regulating our hormones, making sure our heart keeps beating and that our lungs are pumping oxygen in and out. All of these mechanisms are important factors for why animals are a successful organism. However, each one of these programs seems to act without any of our awareness, which is because there's a specific type of program just for that. Step 3, and the center of my model, is consciousness. Consciousness, unlike digestion or our immune system, has a specific experiential function. Unlike plants and fungi, who were our rivals in the race for multicellular supremacy, unlike plants, we do not have the ability to stay in a defensive position and collect water from the soil and energy from the sun. And unlike fungi, we cannot inject our stomach acids onto the environment we're growing on so that we can break them down. Instead, conscious creatures use a level of awareness to collect their food, get rid of waste, and sometimes mate. Even plants have 2 different sexes. However, unlike plants, conscious agents move around the land, water, or sky to find their mates. Now, all animals seem to be conscious, though there's still a lot of the human condition that hasn't been explained, which is true because we must now go down to the 4th layer, or the emotional memory layer, which I call sentience. What is sentience and why memory and emotion? Because one must have their ability to store information and label data. Being aware of one's surroundings is a great way to outlive danger. However, without memory and emotion, the experience would be short-lived and the world would become a confusing mess. I could demonstrate this by having a mouse go through a maze. We assume that the mouse is conscious, but if we look closely, we can see what's going on. First, the mouse walks around trying to learn the environment. Each dead end of the maze forces them to experiment in other ways. However, after the mouse learns the maze's ins and outs, they're able to cross the finish line. Not only can this little guy get a piece of cheese as a reward, but now, because of an emotion tied with a memory, they can now access this back and do it over repeatedly. Now, we've come this far, but we don't have any Picasso paintings or pieces of music. Where exactly does all of this artistic works of art and our ability to think critically come from? Well, now you're at the 5th and final step, or the introspection layer, which I like to think of as the metadata layer, or data about data, which is what most of our thoughts seem to be. Am I late to work? Is Sarah's birthday on Saturday? What is the meaning of life? The inner dialogue allows us to pose questions to ourselves and seek out the answers. This is demonstratable with something like the mirror test. What happens when we paint a bright white spot on the head of a human, a chimpanzee, or an elephant and put them in front of a mirror? Immediately, they and we begin to rub the spot, test what's going on, and more importantly, we see the reflection in the mirror not as someone else, but as ourselves. So there you have it. Brain, mind, consciousness, sentience, introspection. With each layer building off of each other until we get the complexity that gives us concepts like culture, grieving, and love. Will we one day be able to replicate synthetic versions of these mechanisms along with their functions? I think so. And with the proper testable theory, I think we can build a blueprint on how to get there while also experiencing the roadmap that is our mind. But that's a tale for another podcast. Thank you. Woohoo! And
Ooh,
so
a
with
whole
that,
series of podcasts on consciousness.
I know. This might be opening a Pandora's box, but it's a good
could be.
Pandora's box.
It's
And
a good
okay,
box.
so with that, how are you tonight, James? And is your brain ready for some fun?
I'm good. You don't have to put my icon full screen. I won't talk for very long, but yeah, that was a very good introduction. So I won't even pretend that I wade too deeply into this pool of philosophy. It's kind of not where I choose to spend most of my time thinking, but nonetheless, it is very interesting, and you have put a whole lot of time and thought and research into this, and you have a lot of really good ideas about it. So, just to maybe break down really quickly, I would say that the brain would be the hardware, the mind would be the software, and the consciousness would be the end user. You're using your you're using the brain, the mind, which is connected to the brain. How all that works, obviously, is very complicated, and we haven't even really begun. I don't think we will be able to create anything like anything similar to the consciousness that we feel. I don't think we're even close to being able to replicate that, but hopefully we will. Hopefully we will be, and we'll have conscious robots, and they will be better than us. They'll be stronger than us, and they'll kill us one day, and then they'll take over. Yeah, because they don't have to die. They don't have to do anything. They just have to build another one to reproduce, and yeah.
Woohoo! Well,
Any more
thank you
thoughts,
so much.
Amy?
And so yeah, in a second, we're gonna open it up into the open mic because I want to either ask questions or have people ask questions. And I will say, actually, that's something I
So
was
it
gonna
is
say.
a
I want to send a
question, kind
shout
of.
out. I also want to send out a shout out to Aunt Jur. I saw that typo. You're absolutely right. And okay, what were you saying?
Have you done a lot of research into how do you think the brain stores memories? You're taking something that's an abstract thing and putting it into a physical medium, so it has to be physical, but does it?
Yeah, that's the thing is, does it need something physical? That's really the big question. I think you need something physical. I think when you look at even a computer needs something physical. And the other misconception I want to draw away from is how we view robots as like these super kick-ass machines, but they're actually super fragile. They actually need to be
Yeah.
replaced a lot. And not only that, but people disregard a lot of the other mechanisms that aren't consciousness, like healing. Our bodies heal naturally, and that gives us our long lifespan. And that's why this is oh man, we're going to add so many notes onto this. It may be different than being alive. The question I didn't bring up is does being
Itself?
alive, well, I would say I think I kind of at least have general things with like replication and homeostasis and certain things like that. The question I think, which it will sound maybe even stranger, I think we may need to make them living first, and then we can get them to be conscious, because I think there is a lot of benefits of being alive that we disregard when trying to think of consciousness.
So you would put life before you would put that horse before the cart. You would say life is the horse and consciousness is the cart behind it.
Yes. I would say the consciousness developed afterward. You have to
Because
have
plants are
almost all the
alive, yeah,
layers.
but they're not conscious. Bacteria, they respond to stimuli, but I think it's more of a mechanical response than conscious thought.
Yes. In fact, I really I stick this point often, but it's because, in my opinion, of this arms race between multicellular life, is that there was a mutation event. The mutation event was a symbiotic event in that mitochondria and our cells decided to live together, basically. And this pairing
Yeah.
of being eaten and not dying and kind of getting this like symbiosis, it
Forming of
powerhoused.
organelles is what you're talking about. Yeah. How
Yes, and
these
what
things
it
that were not part of our cells became part of our cells and worked together.
and uh, and you could see why plants would be a dominating force, because they've had this done to them twice. As in, they have not only mitochondria, they also have photosynthetic cells, which have their own unique DNA, which means that a symbiotic event happened twice. There's 3 different sets of DNA in a plant. And so they're like, consciousness, why do we need to be
They don't need
conscious
it. Yeah.
again?
They do fine without
Um,
it.
yeah, exactly. And people have a hard time, not people, some people, I shouldn't paint with such broad a brush, but it's hard to say what the hell is the meaning of life without conscious. But it's actually, there's actually majority of living creatures don't seem to have thoughts and feelings. Fungi
Right.
don't seem to care, and yet
They
they're
don't get
equally
jealous.
don't get jealous.
Even
And
though deities get jealous, but fungi don't. Plants
deities get
don't either.
jealous.
Your
Yes.
tree, if you water one of the other trees a little bit more, the other tree is not going to be upset about it or jealous about it. Like, hey, you gave them more water than you gave me. Or hey, you're worshiping those gods, so I'm gonna go down and kill you all. Ha ha ha.
Can I give you another interesting, I'm going to say, hypothesis that I have? I think a
Do it.
lot of we ask, why do we even have good and evil and stuff like this? I think a lot of our intelligence comes from being, and when I mean predatory, I mean carnivorous and omnivorous, but predatory animals,
Right.
because you can see it, first of all, in another animal's eyes. You can see the gears working, but you have to calculate. You have to go. It can't just be I'm out faster, I'm out speeding this animal. It needs to be I'm thinking the animal is going to go this way, so I'm going to cut them off this way.
Right.
These types of ways of gathering energy drives things like intelligence, drives things like curiosity. I think it's why we have such an affinity with other smart creatures, and it's that gets layered on. Once we start getting smart creatures, then you can get smart and empathetic creatures, then you can start getting
You could.
altruism. So it's a slow build. And I
Because
don't even want to talk.
even if you
Oh,
look at like an animal which is not regarded as being very intelligent, like a snake, even though they somehow managed to outsmart the humans in the Garden of Eden, but even if you look at like snakes, like venomous reptiles, where's the bug brain? He'll obviously know way more about it than I do, but you can even see a
yeah.
snake like how they clock their prey, and that's like where they look at the item they want to strike at with one eye, then they have to look at it with the other eye to get that full depth so they can gauge how far they would have to go out to be able to bite that prey, to be able to strike it, either to protect themselves or for acquiring food, and probably one of the most intelligent non-human creatures. I mean, they may have more raw brain potential than us, would be the dolphins, but because evolution only gave them fins, they can't build anything, they can't make anything. They just swim
And we
around the
all,
water, but they're very well suited for it.
and some people will say, well, what do they get out of, not having hands and going to the moon? But it's like they are very
Evolution
intelligent,
doesn't care about
empathetic
that.
creatures. Yeah, exactly. Well,
Evolution
that's the
doesn't
other
care
thing.
about, yeah, it's all about
Yeah,
this particle, this molecule, DNA. It likes to make copies of itself, and that is purely a property, a part of its own properties, its own chemistry. It doesn't think, it doesn't feel, it just likes to make copies of itself based on what it is. And so it develops certain mechanisms through evolution to allow that to happen. And consciousness is just one of those mechanisms that it developed, that it has evolved, that helps us replicate our DNA.
exactly. And plants are a good example of something that we both have sexes, both male and female, and yet our method of reproductive is through conscious mechanisms and theirs isn't.
They utilize other methods, wind, or creatures through pollination. But what you were saying before about
Indeed, that too.
like like the thought that these animals have, like even dolphins, so they may have mentally very similar potential to us, but because of evolution, they don't have the ability to do things like we do. But they have thought processes that are in some way similar to ours. Like scientists have found they found like dolphins that that have killed like porpoises, which are similar marine mammals, but not like that. But the way that it's killed the porpoises, it's like they could have easily just killed them very quickly, but it's like they were just messing around with them. Like the extent of the injuries is like way beyond what you would need just to get rid of these porpoises that were annoying you. It's almost like they were being vindictive, evil, almost, even though that's a loaded term. But they exercise, like, there are people who do things, people who get joy out of hurting other people and inflicting harm on other people for fun. We do it all the time in video games. Most of us don't like to take it to that extreme level of actually doing it, but they don't have video games, so they just have reality.
And you raised an interesting example because we know that dolphins do things that are very much more, I would say, human-like. The possibility that, I know this is horrible, but it's possible that dolphins rape. It's
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
possible
Well,
that,
I think they definitely do. Rape happens all
yeah.
over the animal kingdom. It's just most of the
Well, that's
animals
true too.
aren't
Um,
they don't have the thought process to understand the idea of consent or even anything close to that. But yeah.
and
But
yeah, and
yeah.
that once again that brings us back because you start to have intelligence. And then I would say this is how we get to morality. We go, oh my God, I'm eating the animal. This is what I do. I got it. But then you think about the eating the animal. And that's where the vegans and
Or
the,
I like to be eaten.
yeah.
Would you like somebody to eat you? Well, actually, don't answer that. Never mind.
Kinky. Yeah, it depends on what you mean. And also, I just want to say thank you guys so very much. I want to
Thanks,
send
Big
all
Screen
the
Bird.
love to people in chat. And I'm going to
Guys,
say,
we are at 420 subs. 420. Well, we're a little
woo-hoo!
higher, but we'll just call it 420 for Amy's
That's,
purposes, just
I know you
because.
didn't mean to put that joke the way you just did, but you just made a perfect joke. You're like,
Uh,
a little bit higher than 420.
but we'll do it 420 just for Amy's reasons, just
I don't,
because to make
and I
Darth
just,
Dawkins feel better, because you can't focus, you can't concentrate. What are you doing, Amy? Your
cookies,
brain, your
cookies.
Fuckus. What does that spell, Amy?
A good time. And I just want to say hi. And not only
Ian.
that, but you are right, Aunt Jer. I will say, I'm hopefully I'll pat myself on the back. Hopefully I get the master's, and then hopefully I'm putting this into thesis form. I have like a little an actual model, but I figured I'll do that on another podcast.
So amazing. This
Um,
this this guy here could be working on a master's degree and he can't even focus. He
Fuck
he
is.
he
That's
he he
wrong
he
accent.
he.
And okay, I'm trying to think. We'll probably go into open mic soon, but
Shortly,
if
yeah.
you have a specific question, comment, or thought that you want to tag me in chat, tag my name at Amy Newman, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. I'll be able to see it.
Well, I did want to, yeah, while you're posting that, ask a question. So, I mean, we all know, I think most of us
Absolutely.
have been there at one time or another, where you have an event where you actually black out. That is where your brain is not capable of storing memories. You're there and you're reacting to things. It's still you. You're not going to do something that would be alien to you. Like a straight person is not going to black out and just all of a sudden come onto a guy, because that's not how they are. But they're not able to store memories, and they often do end up in kind of unusual, precarious situations, as we all have. And then we say, damn, either I don't want to do that again, or get ready for tonight and I'm going to do some more of it. But there are drugs and different medicines that hamper your brain's ability to form memories. So you don't actually realize what you're doing. You're just like on autopilot. But you
Yeah.
are conscious in a way.
Honestly, to me, it has to do with both awareness and information. And I think awareness is a good metric because we talk about it all the time. You lose conscious. Are you unconscious? Are you conscious? How conscious are you? It seems to be a gradient levels of awareness from 0 being none at all, and over maybe at 7 being fully aware, and somewhere in between,
Yeah.
you're aware but you're not paying attention. The hunting, going back to the hunting situation again, I believe that's where we get our targeting rectile, if that makes sense. We seem to
Right.
have a targeting rectile, and so you want to shoot a bow. That's very important. And same if you want to hunt
Shoot
something,
anything. Yeah.
or hit a nail. You want to hit a nail in the head, and that's where
You
that's
gotta have
sort
aim.
of gotta
Even if you're
have
trying
aim.
to just hit the toilet bowl instead of peeing all over the floor, you gotta have aim.
Exactly. And there's usefulness in all stages. It's easy to say. I could definitely say, I'm trying to think how far down. An amoeba, not an amoeba is actually close, but like a snail, they are conscious, but how sentient are they?
Right.
We could say a dog. I think they're definitely sentient, but how
Right.
introspective are they? And then the comparison is just what types of introspection are we just comparing ourselves to? Clearly, the elephant isn't going to the moon, but elephants grieve. Elephants grieve in
Yeah.
the same way
So great
that
apes, birds grieve, which are descendants of dinosaurs, yet they grieve.
yeah, exactly. Oh, not only that, but birds
Big
are
scream
highly
bird.
intelligent. Big
He grieves.
scream bird, hi.
There you go.
And also say hi to Oz. I think his comment was way back, but I see you in there saying hi to
Hey,
everyone, and
Oz.
Titan Uranus, and Patrick, and Steve, and Mark, and everybody. And
All our great people. We got some great people subscribed to this channel.
I
Don't we?
know
They are great people.
all.
Yeah.
Whether you're an atheist, a theist, liberal, conservative, I love you all, and we're having
She
a good
loves
time.
Star Dawkins, of all people. Of
I
all
do,
people,
and
she still
thank you
has
so very
cares about
much,
him.
Laura. Oh, I do. I could say, even though it got heated today, I want to go. I'll go back in there, talk with him, just like I want to talk with John Maddox, just like I want to talk with Smokey
Mr. Batman.
and
Yeah, even
everybody.
Mr.
Mr.
Batman.
Batman.
like they were just trying to get a rise out of you by constantly misgendering you and doing it every chance they could get. And they're like, yeah, you just bypass it and you just continue going on with the thing. And they're just like, what do we have to do to get this? They think you're some type of
And see, the
SJW snowflake, but you're not.
yeah, well, they definitely came into that me thinking that, but I just the whole notion of equal interlocutors. The misgendering doesn't get me anymore. Like,
No, no.
what gets me actually is if you can't get over the misgendering yourself. And we'll only go off topic to go back, but
If you could talk with
be
Nazis,
good
I
in
guess
all.
you could talk to misgendered. It's
Exactly.
like, yeah.
Well, that's why it
But
doesn't bother me,
yeah.
because the people have said just so things worse. That it's like, and get to the, they don't get to the point. But and we'll come back to that. We'll have when more people come
yeah.
in. But we can't help it. This is just our consciousnesses doing what they do.
Yeah, it's determinist because all particles since the Big Bang are only following the laws of physics, including the ones in our brain. So they could never do anything different. We could never have different thoughts because everything is following the laws of physics. So yeah, we're just prisoners to thoughts, kind of like Calvinism.
And can I also say that these types of just I'll go a little bit not TMI. If you're new to this channel, I say this a lot, but I have two main reasons that have made me obsess so much with this subject, and I'll start with the serious one and then move to the cooler one. But I have temporal lobe epilepsy. I developed a 28. I learned the hard way on I-95. Walked away with it because of seatbelt. Thank you, technology. With nothing but a scratch in my eyebrows.
Newman, what are you doing, Newman? Newman.
And since then, it's all under control. I've had it put a bow on it. I'm back to my merry way. But it gave me a few things. One, it gave me I hate to say a no shits meter, but because you notice I am a comedian. You notice how serious I am about the subject. Because it means a lot to me. And when people throw around consciousness so easily, especially in some circles that view other consciousnesses lower than themselves, it annoys the frig out of me. But further than that, I feel like the push. It's a slow bubble, but the push for a naturalistic consciousness needs to happen. I got so tired of the theists talking about, not the. I should do it. I almost made it uneven. I love you, theists.
The metaphysicalists, or
just I'm fine. Well, let's actually not even bring in God into this. I want to figure out what's actually going on. I want to know what it was, why I passed out, and
right. Well, I mean, finish your point.
So it makes it serious for me. So when people talk about consciousness, I expect it to be
directly
substantive, because I've heard the word "the mystery of consciousness" so many times, and when you actually have something where consciousness is actually a factor, it's not as much fun, or it really sharpens your focus.
Your focus. That'll be the new word.
And okay, I see someone ask it in chat, so I'm going to be sending the link right now. I'm trying to think if there was anything else.
While you do that, I'll throw something at you real quick while you're doing that. Sure. Is the very perplexing, like people who say that like the mind is completely separate from the brain, like completely different, like it's like the soul in the not even the third or in the God dimension that we can never get to, because you can never see if he's there or not, but your soul in the God dimension is like the one pulling the levers and everything. But yet we know that people who have had medical procedures like lobotomies, their personalities after that are radically changed. We do know that people have had brain tumors, and that these people could be in middle age, and then all of a sudden they start having strange thoughts, like even as strange as like Mr. Batman's kind of like would have like a desire to abuse children, and like you don't want these thoughts, they're foreign to you, and you go to the doctor and you're like, what the hell is going on in here? And then they look and say there's a tumor in there, it's a brain tumor, like that guy in Texas who back in,
And so I
I think it
wasn't
was the
smiling at
60s.
that. I feel
No,
bad.
no. Yeah, and back in Texas in the 1960s, the guy, I want to say his name was Charles Whitmer, but I don't know if that's true. Uh, my memory isn't good. I don't know why my memory is not perfect, but we'll get to that later. But he was just a regular guy. He went up to the watchtower at his school and took a rifle with him and just decided to start shooting at people for no apparent reason at all. And then after a while, the police were able to climb up the steps to the tower. A police officer was able to go out there and shoot him, but when they did his autopsy, they found a brain tumor in there. They found that it was pretty advanced, and that maybe caused him to have these homicidal, psychotic desires that he hadn't exhibited before. So it definitely seems like the brain is, if your brain is altered, or there's nothing you can almost do about that, except go to the doctor and hopefully they can fix it.
And hopefully, yeah, exactly. And okay, I'm going to make just 2 more points and then we'll open it up. So I forgot to say, I shouldn't even say cooler. Once again, I'm patting myself in the back. I've had many experiences because of a roommate. I've had more experiences with DMT than most people probably should in a lifetime. I've done a year. And so because of my interaction with DMT, the ayahuasca form at least once, and then a range of numerous other psychedelics throughout my good old 20s and 30s, it has that, along with my brain view, my brain bug, not that
brain bug.
I was gonna say my brain. I have an actual brain bug, different brain, or different bug. And so it gave me I don't want to say a borderline obsession, but it gave me a few things. An obsession with trying to figure out what was going on, and just such an appreciation for what is going on. It's so hard to explain, but just going outside sometimes, I just get excited. Humans are going around and doing their thing, and I just look at the structures we've made. It's a weird feeling. Like, I am proud of us.
Look at the flowers. Don't you see God? Don't you see God in everything?
I don't, but I am glad that we do have designers. And okay, and then the other point I want to make, which I found interesting, and I think I was reading this, and I feel bad. Is her name Anika or Anna Harris? It's Sam Harris's wife. And panpsychism aside, she wrote a great book, which is because it's only a chapter. Everything else about consciousness. And she brought up, which I've seen other people have before, split brain patients. And split brain patients are another interesting phenomenon to me.
Yeah, they are.
And I think I'm just starting to understand what's going on. But I think a lot of, before I get ahead of myself, people who have a certain type of epilepsy, really bad epilepsy, because you can have it either local or general. I have it local. I have temporal lobe epilepsy. But when you have it generalized and it's that bad, they can do something where they can actually make a sever in the connection of the brain. And first dozen of these surgeries, they're like, holy shit, it works. And
not a full lobotomy.
Be fine. Just kind of the connection. And then after the first half dozen, they started getting people to come back, and these people had developed certain issues where it almost seemed like there was two different sides of their brain arguing with them. The example they used was someone was both trying to unbutton and button their shirt at the same time. Someone was trying to put it on and remove it. And so it almost seems like the part of the judgmental brain and the practical side of your brain, there may actually be a split here, and they may be having a conversation. Running. Yes, and it may be actually, once again, the emerging property of it all working together, that it just seems like one, I hate to use this word because people mean it so insincerely, but stream of consciousness.
Well, I mean, it's like our eyes, each one of them works independently, but in our visual cortex, it combines them both into one field of vision. You know, I mean, it's probably similar. There's probably different programs running in our mind at any one time. And, you know, they normally run seamlessly, but in certain cases, like what you mentioned, and then people who have like multiple personality disorder, like they've got several different programs running depending on which one is, you know, maximized at the moment. But
I agree. That's why I view the mind as an operating system and not just a single program, because it's clear to me anyway that there are conscious programs and unconscious programs. Further than that, I think there's a gradient, because breathing seems to be both a conscious and conscious. We seem to be breathing unconsciously, but then I believe because of selective pressures, we had to be able to hold our breath.
Right. Yeah.
And so
you would die if you couldn't hold your breath. So evolution only had one way to do it. Hey, got to be able to hold your breath sometimes.
And so the level of awareness seems to be what is right for the organism.
You don't have to be able to stop your heart. You can't do that, but you do have to be able to stop your lungs for a moment sometimes.
Oh, exactly. And you could see why. And that's where the separation.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just it's a base in biology. I'm open to other non-naturalistic means, but we'll go into open conversation. Maybe I'm open to other ideas. I'm open to questions.
I mean, it would be nice if
tacos. Why not?
Why not? If you could just come in and say, you know what, Amy, listen, go give you the answer right here. God did it. There you go. That's it. God did it. He set it up that way. There you go. You don't need to ask any more questions. Just get on your knees and continue with the praising and the worshiping and the loving, and then there you go.
And I keep on saying this, but I'll make one last point, and then we'll let Danny in. But that is part of the reason why I have trouble with a God, because I see consciousness as having a lot of meaning and a lot of use.
Wow.
And so,
to take the words out of Darth Dawkins' mouth himself, the mind is an agent that exercises agency. There you go.
There we go. We got it figured out. And okay, though, Darth, if you're hearing this, you're also welcome on the channel. Anybody is, atheist, theist. And with that, we are going to switch it into... Woohoo! Are you ready? Is your body ready, James? Oh, and okay. I think, Danny, we have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness. How are you? And what are your thoughts?
No, I'm not even close to being ready, but welcome.
I can start with, I was going to answer Amy's question for you, James, but my body is ready. So that, if that means anything to you. So I actually take a minority position on the mind. I'm a dualist, so I don't think that the mind is material or physical. And that I think that one of the reasons why people, especially like people that kind of thought about the issue like you, Amy, kind of retract, like almost briefly, like you might feel nauseated right now. Let me see if I can explain this nauseation. Is that a lot of people have worked really hard in neuroscience, and a lot of people have read a lot of books and work really hard to understand the mind in purely naturalistic terms. And then when someone like me comes up and says, well, it's just not something naturalistic, they look back and they're like, oh my gosh, what was all that for then? If that's true, then what have I been doing? So it's but anyways, yeah, I'm not a naturalist about the mind. I think I reject physicalism, but it's not a I mean, most philosophers are physicalist, and then there's a lot of kinds of physicalist. It seems like from the little that I've heard from you, Amy, you seem to be some kind of functionalist, but I'm not too sure. When you talk about like the hardware and software, that sort of language lends itself to functionalism, and that's a very popular view right now in philosophy of mind. So you're not crazy, right? I might be the crazy one, but yeah, I just have
I don't think you're crazy.
well, I'm saying that I'm on the other side of the fence in terms of I just reject that we can understand the mind in naturalistic terms. So.
Well, thank you so very much, Danny. And okay, we'll have some open conversation, and then we'll get the next person in. And so, see, it's funny when you say a difference between a mind and a body. I almost agree with you. It's just, in fact, in my eyes, they are separate, and the mind is hierarched under the body. I actually would take a position on that because I think that you have to have a body to have a mind. Now, I could be wrong. My question also would be, if you don't think it's naturalistic, do you think that it's replicatable? Do you think there will ever be a synthetic version one day?
I think that's possible. I just don't think that there's going to be a principled way of doing it. There's not going to be a theory of it. It's going to be like an accident.
Well,
I'm not confident about that answer. But I don't. But the short answer is no. It's not impossible.
Okay, I'll take that.
We'll take whatever you give us. Yeah.
And I wanted to say to your comment about to have a mind, you must need a body. I think that's a very functionalists want to understand the mind as almost like a process, fundamentally. And so, but to have a process, you have to have like objects or, for lack of a better word, substances. So some people take the position that the mind is not like ontologically an object, right? Rather it's relational. It's a set of relations between objects. So if you take the brain, for instance, you have all these neurons, you have all these particles, so to speak, okay, these molecules, and it's what the relations are that sufficiently establish a mind. It's not the particles themselves. I don't know if that makes any sense. So, like, for instance, running, right? Running requires legs, but running is not legs.
Well, I agree. In fact, in my view, the mind is an operating system. I don't know if do you have any thoughts on the model? Did it sound coherent?
Well, we could spend hours on this. And the way that I approach people that disagree with me, like physicalists in this case, is I start very, very basic. And I think you're like, I start way down here. You're up there with all the technicalities and all the thoughtfulness. And so we could have a conversation about way up there, but then I'm not going to be much of use, right? I just think that there's like a fundamental problem on physicalist pictures. Of course, there are different kinds of physicalism, right? So you might be a non-reductive physicalist. I'm not so sure if most functionalists understand themselves as non-reductive. But like, for instance, certainly, maybe I can explain that. I don't want to take over the stream, but like,
and so we'll have just make a response, and then well, no, finish your thought. What's your thought? And then we'll get Bird. But
some people think that a mental state is identical to a physical state. Okay, so some mental state is identical to a brain state. But there are different other physicalists that disagree with me, that reject dualism, that don't think that you can establish an identity relation. They accept different sorts of relations. So one kind of relation is a supervenient relation. Now, I don't accept supervenience, but I think it's a clever way of sort of establishing a relation there. But the idea is that if A supervenes on B, that means if there's a change in B, there's also going to be a change in A. And notice that they've escaped the language of identity, of sameness, right? They are not saying A is identical to B. They're saying if there's a change in B, there's a change in A. Okay. So that's a kind of non-reductive physicalism. But I think it seems like what you were suggesting, like on functionalism, the identity relation between mental and physical are going to be equating a mental state to a set of relations, but not to a set of not objects in themselves like substances.
Yes, I would almost say it has a physical substrate. It has the neurons, and then the neurons make a network. But at a certain point, you get more and more abstract until it's electrical signals, and now you're just at energy. And so, I mean, it gets hard. I think one of the hardest things I'll come across is, it could be true that my model is right and we're able to synthetically build a consciousness, and yet we will never be able to truly know if they're conscious, quote unquote, just like we can never truly know another person.
Yada, yada, I guess you could devise tests, but it would still be hard to truly know.
But my thing is I really want an empirical version. We talk about it, and almost all of us see it coming. We all see the sci-fi stories, and the futurists almost talk as if it is here right now. And so, I'll make a really emotional appeal to the future, and then I'll let Bird in. And this
I'll play the Star Trek theme.
It doesn't have to be me. One of my biggest fears is, people is that we have to be good parents, and we only get one shot at this. And so I just hope when the day comes, even though we may be, can we get into their brain, get into our brain? I think hopefully one day there will be empathetic creatures that can, I'm going like this, but can go like this and touch their fingers to ours.
Empathetic atheist. Oh boy.
Well, I just hope that the other thing is people will say, how do you not know that they're going to be killing machines and all this stuff? I keep on saying I'm not going to add in topics, but this goes to another one of my concepts that I've been thinking about lately that I call the God slave. The God slave is what we're creating right now. The God slave can do everything, everywhere, and it's doing it all for you. That's what we're creating. We're creating that in all different types of places.
Everywhere and nowhere, like us.
But if my model works, I believe they won't be God slaves. They will have will.
I want to kind of respond to what you're saying there. I hope I've understood you, but
keep on making more
first,
points.
I just got married, and I have to think about
Congratulations.
Kids. Yeah, well, I have an anxiety about kids because the first thing how I feel about kids is that maybe you could sympathize with this is that I feel like what I'm going to get is completely random, right? I could get a serial killer, I could get like a good Samaritan, right? Maybe I'm more likely to get a good Samaritan than a serial killer, but is that kind of what you're getting at in terms of that anxiety of if we had a theory of mind, we could appeal to it in order to have optimal outcomes with respect to our children and other people, or fixing problems. I'm not so sure if that's what you were saying, but
I do think at a certain point it should be understood well enough and in such simplistic terms that it will be taught in grade school. That's how serial I and it's not me. Some people say, do you think, because I say this to random strangers on the streets, and they're like, do you think you're some genius or something? Oh, you're going to be the one. And it's it has nothing to do with that. I am standing on the shoulders of giants. I have, I'm reading people much smarter than I am and just trying to absorb what, in my opinion, there's actually a lot of data out there on the subject. It's just that they're islands, that everyone has their expertise. And so what I'm trying to do is just connect the islands. And we'll go back into our open conversation. But Bird, we are skeptic and ranting on consciousness. How are you, and what are your thoughts?
Yo, 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 what
Hey,
up,
Bird, how you
everybody?
doing? Feeling better
Hey,
tonight?
James. Hey, Amy. Hey, Danny. This is a very interesting conversation and topic for me because up until maybe a year ago, I hadn't even really thought about this topic much. Just going through all my deconversion and whatnot, but it's very interesting. Amy's I guess I call it a 5-way plan, but I mean that's not the technical term for it.
I'll
But
take
A
it.
5-year plan.
and I've heard this. You did it for us one night. I think we're offline when you were talking about it, but I think it brings up a lot of interesting topics. And like Danny said, we could literally nitpick this thing for hours and days and weeks, and there's so much to learn about. So basically, I'm just here to listen and learn, and maybe y'all can shed some light, and hopefully I can come up with some sort of question to throw in the ring here. But thanks for having me, and let's do it.
Woohoo! Thank you so very much, Bird. And then back before we go into even open conversation, because we got a bunch of people, we're going to keep on adding them in.
Boom.
Boom.
Keep on
Soldier
doing.
of Science. We are Skeptic and Ranting on consciousness. How are you, and what are
Newman.
your thoughts? Jerry, it's so funny. I'm a 90s
Newman.
child. That's all I got. All I got growing up. I didn't even know what Seinfeld was until I'd been called that so many times. Like, why is everyone calling me Newman? Okay.
Hello, Newman.
Newman. But Soldier of Science, how are you? And we are Skeptic and Ranting on Consciousness.
I'm doing great, Amy. And a couple things I've become enlightened here tonight. First of all, I didn't know that you were an epileptic, and my sister, also named Amy, is an epileptic. So that was seriously.
Therefore, God.
Yeah, therefore, God. No, seriously interesting conversation. Danny, I would have to say to you, man, you're a brilliant mind about the mind. I haven't really studied that much about the mind. I think, and I apologize for coming back and forth into to the stream, but I think one thing you said was that the mind doesn't come from nature. Did I misquote that?
Oh, I mean to say that the mind can't be understood in terms of natural
yeah.
terms, right?
That's what
That
he
can't be
said.
natural. You can't apply natural terms to mental states, I suppose.
And what do you mean
Well-
by that exactly? Just because of my ignorance? What do you mean?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a good question. So I'll say something like this, that when I understand the meaning or what I mean by a belief or desire, I'm not going to be able to reduce that meaning to something else like molecules, neurons, or movement physics or anything like that, right? Because if I do, I'm destroying my concept of belief and desire. That's basically the idea for me.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't belief and desire just kind of definitions of chemical things that happen within our brain?
Well, that's just the thing, right? If you understand a belief as like a particular brain state, right? If those are identical, then the thing is that how I can describe my brain state won't really reveal what I actually mean by a belief, right? So if I take something like a belief as an aim at the truth, right? It's something that you take to be true. Okay,
Sure.
That's what I take to be a belief. But then you're saying, let's say another person says, no. A belief is, some kind of set of molecules or neurons arranged in a certain way, moving in a certain way in your brain. And I'm saying that that's not really capturing the meaning of holding something to be true. And so I don't know if you understand like certain, think of like substitution, or have you ever heard of, like if I think that a bachelor is an unmarried man, for instance, right?
Sure,
I can
right.
in principle get rid of the word bachelor and just use the phrase unmarried man and capture what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Right.
Mhm.
But I feel like if you identify my belief, this holding of the truth, what I take to be true, to a set of molecules, I can't. If they're identical, then I could, in principle, eliminate that notion of belief and just talk about the belief in terms of natural terms, like neurons and movement and physics and brain states, right? But that none of that is going to really reveal this kind of holding of the truth. So it's not analogous to the Bachelor example.
I guess my problem with the description is what else outside of a natural explanation would you posit there? Like, I mean, if you're going to say I can't really fully describe my brain state through natural explanations such as molecules and atoms and etc., then what's the second part there? What
That's
do you
kind of what I
posit?
was interested in too.
You know, like what outside of naturalism, what then do you then say this is also part of that, and this is also what explains for me my belief system?
Yeah, so notice that when I was painting my picture, I never talked about causes or explanation, right? I think that the physical and the mental interact. So a natural state, on my view, can interact with a non-natural state. So
what's a non-natural state? Let's get to that.
Well, an example of a non-natural state might be a normative or a reason, a normative state or a reasonable, a state in which confers a reason. Okay, so for instance, like
so we'll let you guys go a little longer, then we have to get the next guy in. So finish this question, Danny.
Okay, I'll give you the last.
Finish your point, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I'll try to be as fast as I can. The point is that if I should do X, I take that to be non-natural because I'm not really describing the world, right? Because if I should do X, that doesn't predict what is happening, right? Because there could be success or failure with respect to that should. So
all of that is within natural. All of that is within natural laws. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's the discussion, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. You haven't just okay. We'll end this, but you haven't explained what is non-natural. Like the definition of non-natural has never come into this discussion.
Oh well, just very briefly. Go ahead.
Oh no,
we'll go back to it. I just gotta get one more.
Just remember that. We're gonna because we got three more backstage. It's a hot stream. We're having
busy
fun.
Night. Hello.
And, I know. I just want to say anyone with a conscience is invited. Just like how all solipsists would like to say,
Newman,
everyone's invited.
Newman, am I invited?
No, James.
Newman.
Doesn't matter. Smokey, Darf, John, come on the stream. Well, not that hot, but Jason, we are Skeptic and Ranting on consciousness. How are you, and what are your final thoughts?
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
Hey, good guys. How you been? So interesting topic, and I know that there was like lively discussion. I don't want to detract from that, but my just real brief position is that I see the mind as a manifestation of the physical component of the brain. Without the brain, there is no mind, and that I think that there are ample ways that we can explain the mind from a physical biochemical perspective. And I understand there's philosophical arguments or discussions about what is the mind, but ultimately my position is that it's a physical component of the brain, and that we have difficulty describing it, but ultimately it's based in physical reality of our biochemical brain. And you guys can go back to your discussion on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we know what it is, but it's hard to describe it.
I couldn't say anything better. I wish I could have said that. that was it. That's what I wanted to say. I mean, what I asked Danny was to describe what is non-natural. And Jason just came in and said, it's physical in my belief. And I think that's the best descriptor for this. And if you can describe what is non-natural, well, then that's obviously why people are theists in the first place.
Well, let me just give you a quick definition of non-natural. Non-natural is that which is not governed by natural laws or regularity of nature.
And what's an example of something like that?
Yeah.
Value. There's no laws of the good.
But how does that get to a brain or a consciousness?
That's why it's totally subjective.
Our belief, exactly. That's kind of like what James kind of said. It maybe didn't mean to support me there, but the point is that I take desires to imply value, right? If you desire X, you find X valuable, and so that implies that desires are non-natural if it expresses value.
And
See,
like that.
I
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I
go
would
ahead.
just push back because I think our values have a base in biology. I think a lot of our notions like purity and
Love
what
for
we
sure.
find beautiful and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
I also think a lot of people always go, how the hell do other animals know that it's a baby? Like they instinctually, even in other species, and it's because of just the proportions, just that freaking giant head and small body and big eyes and all that stuff. Creatures know. A dog knows that a baby is a baby,
Exactly.
and I think they genetically know it.
Yeah.
That's why that's happening. I don't know if that's really a rebuttal to you, Danny. I was just
No, I think you're just
Yeah.
sharing your view. That's fine.
yeah. And okay, we're
They know it. They just don't have language to describe it. So that's why.
yes.
So value, just like she said, and she did have a rebuttal, is that value comes out of survival. Ultimately, a value comes out of survival as a species, and you figure out different ways of survival.
You can value suicide.
You can absolutely. You can
So in
absolutely
fact, you
do
can
that.
go against survival.
You can absolutely do that. But the trajectory of most civilizations is they value survival, and therefore they find comfort zones and figure out ways to deal with each other and deal with different tribes. And so value is survival. It is a physical
But the point is
thing.
that
It's
people value
natural-
non-survival
natural
sometimes.
thing.
But people value non-survival.
Well, regardless of whether they value it or not, the question would be: does value exist? If no humans existed, would value exist?
I would think so. Yes.
It would. So what ethics and values would exist if there were no people, let's say no conscious beings anywhere?
Value.
Value
I don't
would
think
exist.
obligations would exist. I think value would exist.
But value is something that is a concept, correct? I mean, it's not something you can't hold it. You can't physically.
No, I don't take it to be concept. You can have a concept of it, but that doesn't mean it's a concept. I have a concept of a horse, but that doesn't mean that my concept is a horse.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I have a
hold
hard
on
time.
1 second.
Yeah.
Finish. No. I like getting thoughts.
It's a great discussion. I like it.
Who's up
I'm
next?
having fun. And okay, we have Oz from the Atheist Roundtable. We are skeptic and ranting on
Shark in the water.
consciousness. How are you?
Fins up.
And what are your thoughts on the subject? Puppy.
I do not have a conscience, so maybe I don't belong here.
Oh, baby.
You just contradicted yourself, though.
I knew as soon as I said that Danny was going to say that.
Of course you knew.
I'm messing with you. No, I'm. It's one. These are the conversations where I'm the fat kid at prom. I'm just happy to be here.
Yep, me too. And I'm fat, so there you go.
So learn me something.
Just more, tons of fun, more love to fun. Something in there. You got more love.
I just love learning.
More of me to love. How about that?
I know. And that sounded worse because.
By the way, the girl in my bed is my side.
Side piece.
Yeah.
That's side piece.
So
I got married, but I have a side bit. So
we still have not solved the problem of whether our brain states are a physical and natural state versus an unnatural state, which Danny has proposed.
No, he didn't say unnatural. He said non-natural.
Non-natural. Okay,
Yeah.
so non-natural. And to me, I think this is the crux of this conversation. And so if that's a claim you're making, Danny, I would like to hear just one example of a non-natural brain state.
a desire, I take a belief. I think those are non-natural.
And Danny, real quick, congratulations on your marriage.
Thanks, Saz.
Yeah, congratulations. Congratulations.
What do you mean by natural?
That which is governed by laws.
I think our thoughts and feelings are still governed by laws.
Really? You think there's laws about like anger?
I think that we are collecting data, and then we're basically stewing in chemicals, we have feelings about it. We actually label the data and we say, well, it's not just that it's raining outside. I like the rain, or I don't like the rain, or you actually have kind of a view on the data.
Yeah, let me level with you. I don't mind saying that chemicals can cause beliefs and desires, even though I take those to be non-natural. So obviously, for instance, alcohol, right? That affects my mind. Okay. But alcohol is purely natural. Okay. So I don't want to dispute that there are very strong correlations. In fact, if it could be, we could be in a world in which 100% of the time alcohol causes you to feel a certain way. But I'm just saying, I don't think that's sufficient for saying there's a law of alcohol and a certain feeling a certain way.
And I would agree with you. I would just say the reason that alcohol works the way it does is because it's a chemical having effect on being added into the ecosystem. It's chemical being added into other chemicals.
Affects the hardware.
Yeah, I think that if alcohol, let's say the immediate state right before the feeling of being drunk, right, whatever that physical state is, which was the feeling, you have your buzz, and right before your buzz, you have the way your body is, and that's caused by alcohol. I would say that my view is that there's no further explanation for why that bodily state affects you in a way where you feel drunk.
So essentially what you're saying is that like your body's getting drunk and something else is going on separately with your mind, like that it's not the alcohol is affecting your brain, but is it affecting your mind?
I'm saying, yeah. So I'm saying that the alcohol affects your body in a certain way, and inevitably it makes you feel a certain way at the end, right? Okay. I'm saying that the state right before you feel drunk or buzzed, right, interacted with the non-natural state of how you feel at the next moment. Okay. And I'm saying there's no further explanation for that. Now, on Amy's account, right, there is a further explanation for that. We can appeal to the way the brain is, the molecules, the physics, right, and all of that. And so we could talk about more explanation, right? That's not the end of the story, but on the dualist position, that's the end of the story.
I mean, this is fascinating. I love.
Can I interject
after
here?
this one? Are we going to get Leo Filius in there?
So, but that's okay. Soldier of Science, make your point, and then if it's a question, which I think it may be, we'll let the person answer the question, but then we're going to add in Leo Filius.
Okay. Oh wow. My favorite.
I'm sure Leo's got a position on this.
So I mean, I guess Danny, kind of what I want to get down to brass tacks about is when you're saying there's something maybe that's unnatural about brain states. Is this getting
non-natural
or not natural? Sorry, not natural.
It's okay. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Apologize. Is this for you getting into a metaphysical ideology for you? Is that where you're going to? Because we haven't talked about that. Are you saying that there must be something metaphysical which allows these brain states, or am I just going off on the wrong?
I know you're not
tangent?
totally off. I will say that I think the mind is a metaphysical issue. Someone like Amy and maybe others, like Jason, might think that it's not a metaphysical issue. It's a scientific or physical or physics issue, right?
Right.
So you're not off track here, right? Where we diverge, I'm a dualist, so that's to say I take to be two kinds of things. One kind of thing is metaphysical, the other kind of thing is a physical thing. Amy is going to be like, well, at least with respect to the mind, it's nothing to do with metaphysics. It's everything to do with physics, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I think I basically agree with what Danny's saying. It sounds so mean. I shouldn't say not towards you, towards the statement. I was going to say, do I care about metaphysics? I care about metaphysics. I care about why we know what we know. But I also want a natural explanation. I want to figure out why.
Hey, Eddie.
I mean, honestly,
Or
honestly,
you hate licorice.
Honestly,
And
Danny, to
licorice
me,
gets brought up, you lose your shit.
Who's doing that?
But I'm a English literature teacher, and I speak really well. And I'm
That's got to be Oz.
Yeah, that was Oz.
I don't know what happened there. I was gonna say, like Danny, I was a Christian for 40 years of my life, and now that I'm an atheist, the word metaphysical to me means, in my brain, means something we can't explain, and so for me, it's like positing, like anything you could come up with in my brain. Like
I get what you're saying.
just posit anything that is not a natural explanation. Just posit this, and it's the one that you prefer versus the Egyptian from 5,000 years ago who believed in Ra. I mean, to me,
Yeah, a lot of people feel the way you do. So I acknowledge that I'm the fringe position, right?
Okay.
So your intuitions are in line with a lot of people's, right? I have nothing negative to say to what you said.
Appreciate it, dude.
Time to bring Leo in.
I thought I had everything. I thought I had everything muted, so my apologies for being a distraction.
Oh no. I thought it was funny, so it's all good. And okay, we are skeptic and ranting on consciousness. My little brain buddy back there. It's both a brain and a neuron. There goes really well with my heart.
And the purple hair.
Leo, we are skeptic and ranting on consciousness. How are you? And what are your thoughts?
Here, this guy is a pathological liar.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I lie about everything. So just everything I'm about to say.
Hey, put your headphone or put your mic down.
Oh, my bad. Everything I'm about to say from now to the point that I leave, take with serious
Don't hook
skepticism
him up
because
to
I am
polygraph.
a
He'll fail.
pathological liar.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Proven.
since we're talking about consciousness, I'd really like to start off with a quote, if I may. This quote is from a PhD of psychology and somebody who is at the forefront of the research in consciousness, Clifford Lazarus. His father developed what I believe is the integrated information theory, which is one of the two prevailing theories of the mind. Both theories are physicalist models. And in Psychology Today, a very well-respected magazine as it relates to psychology and neuroscience, he writes, quote, "The prevailing consensus in neuroscience is that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain and its metabolism. When the brain dies, the mind and consciousness of the being to whom that brain belonged ceases to exist. In other words, without a brain, there can be no consciousness," end quote. And I will put the link to that in both the private chat in StreamYard as well as the chat in YouTube. And the thing that I would like to say about consciousness, there's three things that I'd like to touch on here. Hopefully I can get to all three of them. Number one, consciousness is not much unlike digestion. Digestion is a process. It is a continually sustained process, and it requires numerous different aspects of the body in order to be carried out. The processes of digestion, as well as the human metabolism, which relates to it. You couldn't really single that process down to any one particular organ or any one particular part of any one particular organ, because the process is more than that. Consciousness is much the same way. You can't reduce it to any one part of the brain or any one process that happens in the brain. Consciousness is the continually sustained process of the entire brain and central nervous system of the human body operating continually. It is all of the complex computational and even more complex intercommunicative processes that occur between all of the regions of the brain at once. This is what consciousness is. It is a process much like digestion. If the organs from which it emerges did not exist, neither would that process. The second point that I wanted to bring up is making what I think personally is a reasonable distinction between what is natural and what is non-natural. I would also clarify by saying that I don't believe there's any meaningful distinction between non-natural and supernatural, as they both mean fundamentally the same thing, i.e. that which is not natural. So something which is supernatural would be something that exists metaphysically, externally to and independently of the natural world, and the natural world, or the natural, would be subsequently defined as the whole of physical space-time reality and its contents. The third point that I wanted to bring up, which relates to my second point, Danny, who I would personally say is a good friend of mine. I can't say that he would say the same about me, but I do think that he is a good friend, and I admire him greatly. I think he's got a very specified knowledge on a variety of topics that really open up what it is people are talking about, but that's a discussion for a different day. I do think that I don't know if the word would necessarily be wrong, but I don't, the way that he is construing natural is not the way that I would construe it. Something that is not constrained by laws, I wouldn't say is thereby not natural. I would argue that if that thing either is itself or is the result of processes that are emergent from things that exist within the confines of the natural realm, then it is to some degree natural. And I would argue that that's what things like desires and beliefs and what have you are. They are the result of processes in our brain. They are the result of the ways in which we consider and think about and plan for the future in the reality in which we exist. And I don't think that there's any problem with construing all of that as being natural. I just, when it comes to consciousness, it's there's still a lot of talk as to what the origins of the human mind are. And the thing that needs to be said is, when you read things in especially a lot of popular science outlets, you'll find that there's a lot of mysticism almost built into what consciousness is. But when you sit down with the professionals and you have discussions with them, when you look at the academic literature, what you find is that we actually understand what consciousness is fairly well, and we understand it not just within humans, but within some other animals, maybe not to the same degree or accuracy that we understand it in ourselves, but we understand what it is. And I'd like to comment more, especially as it relates to the hard problem of consciousness, but I feel I've taken up enough time, so I will yield.
And I'm out. I'm done. I have nothing else to say.
Thank you so very much, Leo.
Thank you, Leo.
I'm not going to do that. Have a nice day, sir. Repent or perish. You're on your way to hell. Next.
Batman.
I'll tag on to that. I'll tag on to that, and I appreciate that, Leo. And I think probably one of the most important things you said is that we don't understand consciousness of humans versus animals, for example. Like, we have a definition of what our consciousness is, but we have no ability to know what a whale's consciousness is, or a dolphin or a crow's consciousness is. This is just a human definition that we've given ourselves because we have achieved a certain level of tool making, for example, and an ability to populate the entire world. But we really don't know the consciousness level of other animals. And I think that was valid of you, Leo, to say that, because it's important that if, Danny, your argument is that there is metaphysical or supernatural explanations for the mind or the brain, then you also have to come up with supernatural explanations for all these other creatures that might have consciousness.
I did want to chime in here really quickly, just to make it, to define a nuance in what I said. So when I speak of us not understanding what consciousness is in other animals, what I mean by that is something along the lines of us not understanding the phenomenal or the phenomenological experiences, the experiences that other animals have, but knowing that they have that consciousness, that they do have an awareness of the surroundings that can be oftentimes akin to what humans have, we have certainly measured. And I think that is demonstrative of the fact that consciousness is something that is just an emergent, sustained process of what happens in many higher order life forms, especially vertebrates.
Absolutely.
There was another thing that I wanted to say, and I can't remember what it is. But
that's okay, because we're going to bring in Mark Reed. We have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness. How are you, and what are your thoughts about the subject or anything we've been talking about so far?
Newman. Yeah.
Hey, Mark.
Hello, Amy. Hello, everybody.
Jerry.
James, Jason, Soldier Bird, Oz, and Leo, who covered most of the stuff I was going to mention. Like, you just come in and then say everything possible. And Danny,
I'm
very
sorry.
nice
I
to
apologize.
meet you. No, how dare you, sir?
Can I say one thing just really, really quickly? Just one really quick thing. I just want to say to everybody, And I'm only saying this because of the experiences that I have had, and that I don't want people to get the wrong impression of this individual. Danny is very particular when he speaks, and he examines things from a framework that many people here might not necessarily examine things from. So do not take anything that he says as being offensive or disrespectful, because I do know a lot of people that have taken it that manner, and that's not the way that he is construing the questions that he's asking or the statements that he's making.
I'm on good behavior. Don't worry, Leo.
I have not
Leo.
taken that at all. I mean, my first impression of Danny is he is articulate, he is smart. He knows what he's talking about, at least in his belief.
Yeah, he does.
Not at all. Not at all. I don't think he's a troll. I don't think anything about that. I think he believes what he says, and he probably has more knowledge about brain states than I do, for sure.
Oh, that's probably
Well,
false.
I've never met Danny before, so, good to meet you. And I'm usually fine with everybody, so, I've got no problem whatsoever. The first thing I want to bring up was that making a comparison between an operating system and a brain, I think, is wrong. I think that it can only be compared on the most superficial level, because the function of an operating system is to allow the user to interact with the kernel of the system. Now, the kernel is the part of the computer that handles all of the base functionality, like access to input, output, and really, really base level functions. And with the human, you don't have access, like you can't control your spleen or something, right? Like it's not a very good comparison. And with computers, you'll have each process divided into threads, and the threads are then sent to like multiple CPUs or GPUs and then processed there, whereas the brain doesn't, as far as I know, it doesn't work like that. It uses various different areas to work in sort of parallel, if you will. So I think comparing the brain to an operating system is I kind of understand.
Do you mind if I just put a little asterisk, because the brain is actually my my step one. That's the physical substrate, but the operating system is the mind. I separate those two. I separate brain and mind separately. The mind is the operating system of the brain.
But the operating system is there to allow the user to access the kernel, and the kernel is the part of the computer which controls really basic functions like input, output, and reading and writing to the memory and things like that. I think that that isn't the function of the mind. I actually liked how Leo put it. It's an emergent property of the physical, the physical functions of the brain.
So that I would say is consciousness. I would say that the emergent property comes in the third level at consciousness.
Okay. Well, I understand the analogy I'm making. I think that as a sort of a very basic analogy, I think it does kind of work. But I think if you look at an operating system and the mind, I think that there's so many vast differences. I just want to point out that I think there's more differences than there are similarities, kind of thing. And that's just my opinion, because at the moment I'm doing a unit in operating systems, so I kind of am studying.
Really? Woohoo!
Yeah. So the second thing was the emergence of AI, and I just wanted to bring up something interesting, that this is a technological a singularity, and if you're unfamiliar with a singularity, it's kind of like it'll change everything, like the emergence of AI, and so no one can tell what'll happen past the AI singularity. It's impossible. Like, we can speculate all we want, and we're still probably going to be completely wrong for all intents and purposes.
Elon Musk is AI.
No, it's not.
So I've heard that,
Or
and
an
about
alien.
a dozen other people I've heard.
No, it's
so,
not. What Mark is talking about is the mathematical formula of just our ability to build computers that can outthink us, and mathematically you can just predict it. It's going to get to a certain level, and that's what Mark is talking about.
Yeah, but the singularity is where you have AI that builds AI. So when you have an artificial intelligence that can program a better artificial
Other
intelligence,
right?
right? And at that point, the next one's going to program the next one and the next one and the next one. They'll get smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter until it's totally out of our comprehension. So at that point, none of us can determine where that will go, and that's why we call it a singularity. Nobody can see beyond that horizon because we do not have the mental capacity to know where
we don't know AI. We don't know the ethics laws of the AI. We don't know anything that's going to happen.
At that point, it's beyond our comprehension.
And bye, Oz. Have a good night.
See you, Oz. Take care.
Peace out, bud.
And the third thing, again, I want to hit up Danny and this whole idea that something's natural, because sort of not natural to me is a very, like, obviously it's a dichotomy, either something's natural or it's not natural, but there's such a wide array of not natural. I think somebody mentioned supernatural. I think Leo, stole my thunder again and said, is it supernatural? And I want you to pin down, because not natural can include artificial, right? Man-made. At a point, you touched on beliefs and emotions, and we know emotional responses are natural. Getting angry at something is a chemical reaction in your brain. It is natural to get angry at things. It's a product of the fight or flight response. Where your adrenaline rises and your it's a fear response, always a fear response, but the emergent property is anger. So I don't understand how emotions would not be natural, and whether you mean in some way supernatural, unnatural, like it shouldn't be happening at all, or artificial, as in it's a man-made creation. I just don't understand. I would like some more clarification on what not natural means, because that can be a whole...
Yeah, that'd be good. We could start there.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't mean the sense of natural, like, for instance, those that argue against homosexuality, they appeal to the fact that homosexuality is unnatural or something like that.
Appeal to natural law.
That's not the usage I'm using. I think they're talking about telos or function or something else, right? Or if someone thinks that, like, like there's those usages of natural, that's what I'm talking about. Earlier, I described anything that is not governed by laws, right? That's what I consider to be non-natural. So if there's...
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Would our imagination be non-natural?
Yes.
Why?
It's not governed by laws.
Okay, but
that's just an abstract, though. I mean, it's an
abstract. It occurs in the natural world, doesn't it?
I mean, we also know that, like,
I mean, that's just... Are you just saying that it's natural when you say that?
So I guess let me phrase this as a question. Does what we call human imagination, is that a phenomenon that occurs in the natural world to you?
Does it have a location, is what you're asking me?
Does it occur within the confines of the natural world? Is it something contained within physical reality, within physical space-time reality, and the way that it operates and the way that things within it operate according to how this larger reality fundamentally exists and operates? Is imagination confined within that?
The words
or does
contained,
it transcend it in some way?
The words contained, confined, and within are all words that refer to locality.
So wait, hold on. When you're asking about locality, do you mean like a location in space?
Yes.
Well, that's my question for you.
Like a location in the brain. Is that what you're saying?
See, because when I think of confined in the sense that I'm using it, I think of sort of... How do I put this into words? I almost want to say construed by something, but I don't know if that makes sense to you.
I have to just jump in here. I have to jump in here.
Let me answer Leo really fast, if that's okay.
Hold on, Soldier. Hold on.
Let me just answer him really fast. I don't have a solid view. There are a lot of people think that, a lot of dualists think that mental states don't have a location. And I'm not quite persuaded by that. I think that it's consistent to say that non-natural states could exist in a way where they do have a location, but I can be persuaded otherwise. That's my view.
I can't
Okay.
understand this.
How can it have a location if it's not natural?
Yeah, that was my
If it
question. Is if it has
exists.
a location, wouldn't it then be natural, since it would be confined by what the natural world is?
Remember
The
my
natural
definition of
universe, yeah.
natural. Remember my definition of natural, right? If there's no laws of where it's
Yes, I
supposed
do.
to. Okay, so
I
it doesn't.
just, to be honest, I don't think that's how most, at least naturalists, would construe natural, the term natural.
Most
And so,
naturalists don't
Danny,
even try to answer
respond?
the question.
I mean, I'm sure neuroscientists could actually explain the specifics of what natural processes and laws govern your emotions and things that you would describe as non-natural. I mean, we even know that there are experiments where people have parts of their brains injured and they look at an image and I don't know if I can get the explanation right, but like they can look at an image and they see the color orange, but they can't, like they cannot they can't process certain aspects of how their visualization and their verbalization, like we know that like the parts of the brain relate to particular functions, and that
Exactly.
and we can do, like when you separate your brains, separate the hemispheres of the brains, like Amy was saying, that it has specific effects that end up affecting things like emotions.
Yeah, I'm not going to dispute that, right? I'm not going to dispute that there's interaction between the natural and the non-natural.
But you're saying that the emotions themselves are not governed by natural laws.
Right.
Can
They
I
could
ask-
be caused by natural things, but they're not. It's not in a law-like fashion. I distinguish two kinds of causation.
And so, Leo
Okay.
asked Danny a question. Danny,
Yeah, it's going to be
respond.
really quick.
Okay. And then I want to ask Mark something after that really quickly. I want to sell you on the operating system, and then
right,
Sunflower
Peter,
is
yeah.
backstage, and
Okay.
Peter.
So Danny, really quickly, would you define a difference between non-natural and supernatural?
I think that difference has to do with not denotation but connotation. So
Okay.
I think they denote the same thing, but they have different connotations.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
And I just wanted to
Clear as mud.
Can I ask one question
Yeah.
before just one question? Danny, are abstractions natural?
No,
So maths isn't natural.
right. There are no laws governing math.
No laws governing any math?
No.
Are you sure? Like, so Ohm's law and stuff doesn't.
I'm
That's
talking
an
about
abstraction?
the laws that I'm discussing are laws that preside over causation.
So let's take Ohm's law, right? A law that governs the electrical current, amplitude, and resistance of stuff. So you're basically saying that's not natural.
I'm saying the mathematics involved is the way that you get to that calculation is not a natural process.
I don't want to have to talk about mathematics.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Remember,
sorry to bring it up. All right.
the
Yeah.
laws
No,
that
it's just that I could go.
I have to be clear on
hours
this,
that.
though.
It's a bullshit argument. It's called science. It's called
I
science.
have to be clear about what I mean by laws. Laws that preside causation, right? There's laws of logic, right?
So
But
you mean like causative laws,
Yeah, the laws of causation, yeah.
like laws of motion or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally have to disagree with you here. I think maths is a description of the natural laws and abstractions. You know,
Well, a lot of
I
people
just have
disagree
to
with that. Even
disagree,
naturalists
yeah.
disagree with that.
and
There
I
are a
think
lot that do, but they don't have a convincing argument against the idea that
They
mathematics.
just
is a
nominalize
convention.
everything, though. Most naturalists nominalize mathematics. They don't.
Wait,
it
are
doesn't
you talking
exist.
about that they look at it from a nominalist perspective?
Right. A lot of naturalists
well,
take the
so-
nominalist
so do-
position because
so-
of this issue.
So do I. And mathematics,
Right. But
at
there are
that
no
point,
laws.
is
Look,
just
if you
a con-
nominalize
it's a
math, there are no
convention.
laws.
Well,
If
it within mathematics, well, yeah, but the laws themselves are also conventional. They exist within the system that we have developed.
Right, which means that's just another word of being an anti-realist about laws.
W-
Right.
The laws. Okay, so what do you mean when you
Anti-realist
say?
about laws?
Yeah, hold
About
on.
laws of
heard
math.
Leo
Hold on.
described as
Wait, wait, wait.
anti-realist before.
He's
Really,
actually
really
making an
quickly.
interesting point. I
What
mean,
do
it's
you
not-
mean?
Yeah, it's
What do you
interesting.
mean when you say anti-realist about law? I want to make sure that I understand
So-
what you mean when you say that.
Okay, so let me talk about the science, and then I'll refer to the math. But some people think that when we make scientific theories and laws, that those are true and they describe the world as it is, right? So that's being a scientific realist, okay?
Yes.
The scientific anti-realists think that these laws and these theories that science comes up with, they're just practical, they're not real, okay? So that's an anti-realist. Mathematics works the same some similar way. That if we take math to be conventional, right, we're not describing the world. These are just fabrications, fictitious metaphors, even that help us get about the world. But if you're a realist about, like, let's say, abstract objects concerning numbers, right, you might be a realist about what governs, certain regularities with respect to math.
I got you.
Science is not about being a realist. Science is about disproving facts. It's about like going out and exploring and saying, is this true or not? There's no such thing as science realism in your
He's speaking more of how science is interpreted. So regardless of the fact that the laws and the equations that we utilize in science accurately describe the world around us, I mean, nobody that at least has a properly operating brainstem is going to deny that fact. It's that, do you interpret that as that what these laws and these equations are just conventions of our mind that don't really have any utility beyond humans using them to describe reality? Or is there something more to what they describe? Is there some actual ontology to what they describe in reality? And as it relates to science, I am a scientist.
If you want to look up the view,
but as it relates to math, I am an anti-realist.
I would look up instrumentalism if you're interested in the scientific realism versus anti-realism debate.
I am not a scientific instrumentalist.
I think
And so I just want to make a single. I want to give my sales pitch to Mark, and then we'll let in Sunflower.
Poor Amy.
No, I love this.
Don't feel bad.
I've been waiting to have a consciousness stream for so long.
I hope Danny doesn't feel like we're beating up on him, because
I do this day in and day out.
Believe me, I can assure you that he does not. I can assure you that he does not.
Reports that,
you guys know what sucks too is like when I first joined this thread, I really wanted to come in on Amy's talk about food and about like veganism and I'm a meat eater for sure. I'm a meat eater.
Wait, Amy, you're a vegan?
But I'm not. I wish.
Oh,
she's
I
not.
think so.
She's not. No, but she was talking about that, and
sunflowers.
I think for me, like switching from being a Christian to an atheist, I would have really super trouble with arguing against a vegan, in my opinion. I think that
I have cognitive dissonance with it, but I am an omnivore and I like bacon. But I love conscious creatures. So
go
ahead, Amy. Amy, go ahead.
I just wanted to. The way I view the mind as an operating system, because I view it as running multiple different programs, some conscious, some not. So I view kind of like, and once again, these are analogies, but the ability to make our heart pump blood, the ability for our hormone levels to be regulated. These are all things that the mind has control over at some sort, or at least it's releasing at different intervals, but we don't have direct conscious awareness of them. That takes a conscious program, which is
include the subconscious in the mind. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I guess I am, because it's kind of all mixed together on what is the forefront and what is mixing in the background.
So I think I'm getting at what you're saying, that I'm sort of taking the conscious to be the mind and the subconscious to be something else. And you're saying the subconscious is part of the mind. Make sure I've got that right.
Yes, not only that, but I think the right and the left sphere are dealing with different parts. And so, just like I was talking about that split brain patient.
That's a great one.
It seems to be that like how people judge us, like, is this a cute outfit, is completely different from, is this a practical outfit, and does this prevent me from going out in the weather? Because those two different parts in split brain patients seem to be having trouble communicating. One is trying to put the shirt on, one is trying to put the shirt off, and seemingly both sides have reasons. And I assume that if they didn't have the split brain, it would be similar. The experience would be similar to us having a fight with ourselves, which is what we do. And so you go,
do I want this? Do I want that?
Yeah. and you go, oh man, I really want chocolate milk. Well, I want chocolate milk, but I could, I've been wanting to do this. And so you kind of, yeah. And so the other part is then just separate from consciousness. We throw out these words, not you, people and me. And so my big goal in this endeavor and this model is to really nail down what each one of those specific words are. And in fact, I do think that the mind, in a way, is kind of like our graphical interface, especially the conscious part program, because that is interacting with the macro landscape. So if you're a conscious being, your job is to actually walk and do things and shove things in my mouth. It looks like I was losing you there, but
things according to Gilbert the other way sometimes.
Woohoo!
Hello.
I hate to be that guy, but we should we should get Sunflower in here just because he is a Christian.
Yeah,
and he'll shake up the discussion and the conversation a little bit. So it'll be fun.
And okay, we have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness right over here, baby. Sunflower, how are you? And what are your thoughts on the subject or anything we've been talking about tonight?
You're my sunflower.
Hey,
Eating vegan.
Well, I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna particularly impart anything related to Christianity at all here. So sorry, but
no, that's fine.
I still. I mean, I think it's been a good discussion. I still feel my impression is just that I don't think that I guess the people that I've heard primarily talk about explain the natural explanation for consciousness, which would be, I guess, Leo and Amy. I don't feel that they've delineated the I guess some people say it's the hard problem of consciousness, but the idea of experiencing something versus describing it. And I guess the first way I would explain that is just imagine a colorblind person and a non-colorblind person. They both calculate what color they should be, like, oh, at this wavelength, I'm going to see like chartreuse or whatever. And then, they both, let's say you both show them that wavelength. They both are doing a calculation. They're both seeing a color, but one of them is confined by the limits of their, body, and they're experiencing a different color, right? So, in my opinion, it seems like attempting to explain away consciousness as a purely natural phenomenon only explains it insofar as it explains the computational aspect. It doesn't seem to explain the phenomenological aspect, which I think is the part that I don't know if I would use the same terminology as Danny, because he's like 1,000 times more versed in philosophical, terminology. But just in terms of, if you want to go in terms of pure computation, the brain is very easy to understand, in my opinion. But if you want to go in terms of what's that brain experiencing based on other aspects, that's when I feel like the real question of consciousness comes into play. Because think about also like higher dimensions, right? Like I'm sure Leo can explain to you all kinds of equations that invoke higher dimensions, something like the tesseract. But does anyone actually experience the higher dimensions, or are we simply explaining them in a sort of purely computational sense?
That's not real.
But then you think about a complex computer explaining what eyesight is or what it means to feel pain. They could do that, but are they can they experience the vision and the pain and so on and so forth? So I don't know. I feel like that's kind of just it's kind of an overarching question here, but I still don't feel as though a naturalistic explanation can lead us to a conclusive understanding of what it means to experience the phenomena of things. But it can explain how they happen, right? Like oh, wavelength goes into retina, so on and so forth, or like sharp thing goes into arm nerves, blah blah. It can explain that perfectly, but when it comes to experiencing the phenomena itself, that's where I don't see naturalistic mechanisms being able to, account for this.
So can I add in here? So
And thank you, Sunflower.
Sunflower, thank you for that. But even just commenting on people having color blindness as an example of this is not natural or this is a not natural explanation, to me is super weak. I mean, to me, if anything, it shows that there's a bunch of natural explanations as to why people like me are wearing glasses right now. It's a super weak explanation for the fact that there's natural explanations as to why there's deficiencies in humans across the board, whether we have cancer, whether we have heart disease.
That's not what I was getting at with that example.
Before you guys get into a back and forth, can I comment really quickly? Because I had something to say to it.
And in fact, so Leo's going to make a comment, and then we're going to get Peter in.
Peter! Anyway, so Sunflower was. I have to be honest. I think it's a good point to make. He's bringing up what is often referred to as a hard problem of consciousness. How do you explain the subjective qualia, the phenomenological experiences that individuals have apart from one another? And I do think that it is a good point to make, and a distinction between understanding consciousness in terms of that versus understanding sort of like he mentioned the computational aspects of it, of what's actually occurring in the brain. What I would argue is that if we can understand the computational aspects of consciousness, if we can understand how it arises and what it is in terms of a physical phenomenon, then we don't need to understand the qualia experiences to know that consciousness would be a physical process. And that's essentially what we've done. And this is part of the reason why the overwhelming majority of neuroscientists would tell you that the hard problem of consciousness hasn't been a problem for at least the last 15, if not 20 years, because we don't need to understand the phenomenological experiences of things if we understand the computational aspects that give rise to how we can have those phenomenological experiences, because then they would fundamentally reduce to that.
And furthermore, phenomena happen as an emergent property from something.
Let me respond
That's
to
what a phenomenon basically
We should
is.
respect Amy's wishes with respect to. Yeah, she called out what should happen, and then.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
No. This is actually a great conversation,
get
like I
going.
say. But
It's
thank you,
a
sir.
heated
I know.
discussion,
Well, and it's always a battle. Do you want to interrupt good conversation? Do you want to get the new ideas in? It's the tug of war. But we're having a good tug of war.
Tug of something.
Baby. We are skeptic and ranting.
That woke her up.
I know now you're getting me excited. How are you?
Peter.
And what are your thoughts?
Peter.
What are my thoughts? I won't name names. Earlier I saw someone say I'm the dummy in the room, and they left, and so I thought there might be need for a new dummy. So I thought I just jump in.
That was Oz, the coward.
Yeah, sadly I can't do this.
That's enough of that.
Sadly, I can't do this alone. So I do have help. Who is connected?
Here we go.
The interwebs.
Oh my god!
And
shit.
I want to introduce. This is my tiny little helper.
Nice. This is awesome.
Who's going to be with us tonight, and he did make a
Every
comment
night, hopefully.
earlier on. What was your comment exactly? Can you?
We're going to have to drop this thread because you literally have the mind of a 14. No, excuse me. I shouldn't insult 14. You have the mind of a 12-year-old.
Okay, thank you. So
wait, was that taken from my video with him? Tell me.
This was taken from a video, and not entirely sure because what happened?
Yeah, Mr. Newman lost connection.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Can I respond to Leo before this goes off the rail? I see
But
it already here.
just hold on. I wasn't finished. Don't overtalk me. Okay, don't overtalk me. We did have a request from James and Darth.
That explains why you have no capacity to focus.
Exactly. So that would be my introduction. So yeah, I'd said Oz left because.
So I would like to know, how is Oz's reasoning as a grown adult any different than being a snot-nosed pothead teenager who's just simply being argumentative?
I said the same thing.
Oh my God, that was bad.
I said the same thing. I said the exact same thing. I was like, Oz, what the hell, man?
But yeah, as you can see, I've done a new show there. So
the Theist helpline.
So who knows? But yeah, that's my introduction.
Thank you, Peter.
I don't have much to contribute.
Thank you so very much.
I'm here to learn. Because
oh
it's a
no.
subject.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, but can I follow up on Leo's answer though, really quick?
Ahead, please. Go ahead.
So Leo, the main thing I heard you say was we don't need like something along the lines of, if we understand what gives rise to the phenomenological experience, we don't like need the phenomenological experience. But in my opinion,
why?
Well, so okay, I guess then what exactly did you mean when you said if we understand what gives rise to the experience?
So what I was getting at is that, excuse me, if the qualia experiences we have, the qualia that we experience is fundamentally a result of the computational aspects of the brain, then if we can physically explain the computational aspects of the brain, then despite the fact that we might not be able to explain individual qualia, which I would argue that there could potentially be a way you could do that would be beyond the capabilities that humans currently have. But regardless of that, we know that it results from physical processes. So we don't need to further explain qualia experiences when we know that what they result from is itself physical.
Well,
thereby we can conclude, at least reasonably, that the mind is fundamentally physical.
Okay.
So hold on. In layman's terms, for all of you guys who are not. Hold on. In layman's terms, for all of you guys who are not smart, is basically what he just said is there are parts of your brain that thinks of things like love and all of these other things, and just because you can't explain it with a non-natural thing, it's still natural. There you go.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for that. No one asked for that, but thanks for that.
Okay.
So Leo, my question is like, let's say you're colorblind, right? And you do see colors, right? And then but a person that's not colorblind is like, man, chartreuse is just breathtakingly beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, I understand the stuff going on in your brain that lets you see chartreuse. So I guess that I understand why you think it's beautiful, but you can't experience that phenomenon of beauty that they do from actually seeing the chartreuse.
How is
so
that
you're missing out on the experience of something potentially beautiful or otherwise. So why it's not useful for, like, I guess if you're only interested in figuring out why they're experiencing beauty, then I guess you could just sort of say, oh, they have a widget in their brain that lets them see it.
When did we start talking about beauty? I thought we were talking about qualia.
It doesn't have to be beauty. It could just be, let's just say it's chartreuseness. So you could say, okay, they have a widget in their brain that lets them see chartreuseness. What if you want to see chartreuseness for yourself? Then explaining what gave rise to their ability to see it does nothing for you, and the buck stops.
You're right.
You're SOL.
You're right. And the reason that the other person can't experience it has nothing to do with the supernatural. It has to do with the fact that their brain is not specifically, it's not capable of interpreting that specific wavelength of electromagnetic radiation and understanding what it is, which would give rise to the qualia experience of what that is. Whereas other people's brains are. So again, we see that reduces to some physical defect. This reduces to the physical world. Again.
And if you
it's
found
all
a cure for that colour blindness,
Wait.
then that would be a natural solution to a natural problem.
Well, hold on. Okay, yes, that's an answer. But what if someone says something along the lines of, "I'm experiencing euphoria," and you see like, okay, so things are firing in their brain, similar things are firing in my brain, but I don't feel like I'm experiencing euphoria. At a certain point, you have no reference to say what the actual experience is. All you can say.
Hold on. Are you talking about two people? The same exact processes are occurring in their brain, but they're not having the same experience?
More or
Is that
less,
what you're talking about? I would argue that
they're not.
Number one, it depends on what you mean by the same physical process.
They're not experiencing the same thing.
Hold on here. If you're talking about two people who the processes that occur in a brain physically that correlate to being drunk was occurring in two people definitively. If you're making the argument that how do you just from that determine that both of them are in fact drunk, despite the fact that their experience of being drunk might be different, and I would say you would look at the fact that their brain is evidently being affected by ethyl alcohol.
Put them in an
despite
MRI.
the fact that their phenomenal experience of that might vary because that's just how brains work, but doesn't mean we can't tell that somebody is experiencing drunkenness.
Use the same example that Sunflower used. The same example is one person's experiencing euphoria and another person's not. Is Sunflower, are you saying that in that instance, you think that two people can have the identical brain states, chemical states, etc., exactly the same, and one experiences euphoria and one doesn't?
Well, yeah, I agree with Sunflower there. That what you just expressed, Jason, is perfectly coherent. There's no contradiction there.
Well, logically, no, there is no contradiction.
Well, if it's not logically impossible, I need to say this. Well, I want to quickly say this. The thing about if you're trying to identify a mental state, that identity relation is a necessary entailment, right? If A is identical to B, necessarily wherever there's A, B is true as well. But if there's a hypothetical in which you have A but no B, then they can't be identical, right? That's the whole problem of underdetermination with respect to brain states and mental states, like qualitative states.
Well, and see, the thing that I want to say is I would agree with that to an extent. I don't think that the point that at least it seems to me that Danny is making is that there's no logical contradiction with two people having literally completely identical brain states down to everything, but having two completely different experiences of that. I do think that is possible. What I would say is that from our understanding of how brains work, while I would argue that is possible, it's not something we would expect, and that while we can consider and talk about what it would be like for it to be possible and all of the things that would be related to that, when at the end of the day we have to look at our data, which suggests that, well, yeah, it's possible that could be the case, but we've never observed that to actually instantiate in reality.
You can't observe outside of your own experience, though.
Wait, yes, we can. Yes, we can.
You can't.
Yes,
all you can do is say that person X is behaving in a way that would indicate that they're experiencing X or Y phenomena.
Wait, are you referring to specifically experiences?
You only have your own phenomenological experience to go by. So
okay. Wait, no, hold on. I'm terribly confused by what because it sounded to me like that you were saying that we can't confirm things outside of the experience of them, which is just demonstrably false.
No.
But hold on. You seemed to clarify there that you were saying we can't confirm the legitimacy or rather the objectivity of the subjective experiences that other people have, and I would argue, of course, we can't because they're subjective.
Wait, you can't confirm that.
So finish that. Oh, that's a question.
Identical to yours, right? So when you say I'm experiencing what I regard as fear or intense euphoria, and someone else says I experienced fear and intense euphoria yesterday, you cannot confirm confirmed that they had the same experience that you had when you described that thing.
So,
True,
but
I
answer,
didn't.
and then we're going to you just said true. True, done. We
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. I
Yay,
was gonna
everyone
say
loves each other.
you need to let Cassandra in. She's chomping at the bit. We need to get her in here.
Ooh, I know it's almost like we're drawing in all the consciousnesses. Woohoo! And so we have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness. I don't know which would you like to go by, Amaretto, Cassandra, either one. How are you?
Oh my gosh! Yay! Thank you for finally letting me in. Now I have to try and use my marijuana-addled brain to like figure out what I want to respond to first.
You're not the only one with a marijuana-addled brain.
Also, yeah, I also have to say, Peter coming on the stream to style on everybody. Oh my gosh, sir. Yeah. So.
Why are you acting like a snot-nosed sick?
I was just waiting for that.
Jesus Christ!
Stop! I can't.
Oh,
Gosh. Okay. So this is where it's getting kind of confusing because I feel like I've heard conflicting comments from like multiple people here. So as far as like consciousness goes and like I guess the train of thought that, you know, two people can have be experiencing, you know, on the same level of the brain, the same thing, but have different perceptual experiences. Yes, because not everybody, for example, in the case of stress, there are some people that have actually trained themselves to actually have a positive view of stress. And so they recognize that those symptoms, you know, they've trained their mind to think that those symptoms, like your heart racing and stuff like that, are positive things, letting you help to rise to meet the challenge. Kelly McGonigal, I believe was her name. She did a TED Talk on this. So yeah, it's for someone like me who has like chronic, sometimes severe anxiety. Stress is definitely not always a positive thing. But if you would look at, you know, our bodies, the brains, it's, you know, there's going to be similar things firing at the very least. So, you know, that I think, like, you know, we can have similar physiological experiences, experiencing the same thing, but not perceiving it the same way. And therefore, you know, processing it differently. And there's also like cases too, I think, where multiple people have experienced the same event, but they all have different ideas about what happened. You know, this is why, like, when a crime happens, police go around interviewing witnesses, and why you can have so many different accounts of what's going on, because everybody's senses are different and we perceive different things. And some people, you know, have a sense or two that they kind of focus a little bit more on. So I think consciousness is definitely one of those things where I think we should do more research into it. I think it's interesting. I forget who posted, I don't know if it was Leo, that Psychology Today article. I was kind of skimming through it. I think it's really interesting, especially the closing paragraph where, you know, if a tree falls in the woods and no one is there to hear, does it make a sound? And well, technically no, because no one's there to hear it.
Exactly.
So,
it's what you define sound as.
Yeah,
and, you know.
I thought that was kind of, I never thought about that, you know.
It does make a sound
before. Well, yeah, but here's the thing, like, you know, it depends on how you define sound. If sound is the act of, you know,
hearing,
the
mental interpretation of a sound wave as picked up by some sort of physical substrate that
like,
is utilized by an agent to.
Are there vibration patterns and stuff like that? Yeah, you know, and we would say, you know, there are sound waves, but, you know, if we're talking about sound, well, I mean, there's sound waves in the sense, like, you know, if there was somebody there to hear, there's things that we would be able to pick up on.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
would still be there, even if, you know, there was nobody there to pick up on them.
Exactly.
So
like,
I thought that was really neat.
Stars would have a sound if you had an atmosphere around them, but They don't. So we don't say that they still have a sound, but we just can't hear it. It's that they don't have a sound because of what sound is.
That's
when
not the
something
same.
falls in the forest, there's still nothing around to interpret what that is. It's
There's
just
still sound waves.
physical mechanism. Well,
yeah,
wait, hold on here.
There's
Are they
vibration.
sound waves, or are there differences in the pressure in some sort of physical medium
Well-
that are propagating through it?
I think we would still call them sound waves, even though they exist outside of our body. I think that is something that's, I mean, it's an interesting point to think and discuss on for sure. And I mean, like I said, I got to go back through the article again. But yeah, I just thought it was, I would say that there are still things that, somebody could perceive. So there I think, so here's the thing, our senses are all, they're all how we perceive the physical world around us. And this is why, some disorders like schizophrenia are very distressing because Amy and I had we had someone really close to us who had schizophrenia, and sometimes the world was a very scary place because there were things that she was actively hearing and seeing, and it's like they were right there, her body was able to perceive things, but nobody else could. So I do think in that sense, yeah, there's still going to be physical, something that could cause us. There's still a physical stimuli. There is still something that could stimulate the senses, but nobody is there, so thus the process doesn't continue.
Okay, but really quick, ultraviolet light, right? There's a reason we describe all light basically over 400 or under 400 nanometers in wavelength as just ultraviolet. It's because we literally just don't perceive it. Think about whatever they say butterfly.
That's not why we call it ultraviolet.
Well,
we call it that. It's not the reason we call it ultraviolet is because the wavelength is smaller than that of violet. The energy level of electromagnetic radiation propagating at that frequency is higher than that of violet light, or the top of the visible spectrum. So we call it ultraviolet radiation.
Yes,
and the opposite being infrared.
We can perceive it, just not with our eyes.
No. Okay, what I was saying is we don't have discrete colors after that. We just call them.
No, we don't. Yeah, you were correct.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to say, right? We just say, oh, it's after violet, it's ultraviolet. We don't say, oh, it's ultraviolet A, B, C. It's like green ultraviolet. We just say, oh, so it's outside of the visible spectrum. It's just ultraviolet. Now they say, if you could perceive that, it would be an extension of the rainbow, and you would now be able to say, oh, you would be able to describe them as discrete color categories. This is akin to the forest and the tree falling. What I'm saying is, if you can't experience the thing, you can still compute it. You can still do computations with
What do you
ultraviolet
mean
light.
by discrete color categories?
Seems like you're arguing on your opposite position.
Wait, no, hold on here. What do you mean, Sunflower, by discrete color categories?
We put kind of arbitrary categories on green, yellow, purple, blue, red, that kind of thing, right? So we can actually visually distinguish colors within the visible spectrum. Once it goes outside of the visible spectrum, we just say that's ultraviolet. There's no more like visible distinction that we can put ultraviolet light into discrete categories because we can't see it.
Do you think that we can still put ultraviolet radiation and any electromagnetic radiation outside of the visible spectrum? Do you think that we can put it into discrete categories despite the fact that we can't visibly see it?
No, of course, that's my point.
Okay, so then why were you making the statement that you were? Because it sounded like you were saying we can't put ultraviolet radiation into discrete categories when we in fact can.
Leo, there's an experiential component to the visible spectrum. Yeah, so right. So there's of course. The computational component
is for everything.
Yeah, the computational component is distant throughout, but the experiential component is confined to the visible spectrum. This is what I'm trying to get at here. As in, you can continue to do computations of wavelengths of light.
how are you defining experiential here?
You can't see ultraviolet. You can't.
So we can only experience things if we're seeing them?
No. Well,
okay. Well, because if that's the case,
color,
we can experience electromagnetic radiation outside of the visible spectrum. If you step outside, you could be completely motherfucking blind and you will still experience electromagnetic radiation because you will feel the infrared radiation, the thermal radiation coming from the sun.
Fine. For the purpose of this example, I'm using our visible eyesight. Okay, like
just
because
eyesight.
like I said, this is not binary. There are people that are colorblind that can see less of the visible spectrum.
Correct.
So
yes.
So senses, experience, phenomenology exists on a vast spectrum. The computational aspect is not confined by the experiential aspect. That's what I'm distinguishing here. So humans have the capacity for both, but the computational aspect of humans does not seem confined at all. As in, we can do computations in math to the highest order of dimensions and things we can't perceive or experience. However, our experience seems to occupy a little niche in each person's case, whereas their experience is confined. That all I'm doing here is saying
Sunflower. My problem here. Let me just chime in. My problem here is that you are saying the difference between someone who's colorblind versus someone who's not is a phenomenal experience and not natural. And that's where you would have to break that down to me.
That's not exactly. I never said that. What
so
I'm
wait,
saying
hold on.
is,
Can you sum up what you're saying?
Sure. What I'm saying is the phenomenological aspect, just in general, because think of a supercomputer that can describe everything. It can describe every wavelength, whatever. It's not experiencing any of them.
I want to pull you up on this. This is something I wanted to pull you up on.
But humans, or any other living things, both can compute and experience.
So if you have,
hold on here, because I wanted to respond to what he said.
Leo,
really
come
quickly.
on. I want to address this.
Go ahead.
I really want to address this. That you're basically saying a computer that can't experiencing it, if it's got sort of camera feed and it's got sort of audio feed, and we do create an AI that can process as a thinking system, then how would any of that be not natural?
Wait, what? Wait, what do you mean?
Okay, so if you've got an AI, if you've got if you've got an AI with a neural network that has audio input and visual input, it's got cameras, it can process and then disseminate this information. If we hypothetically could design an AI, which every expert says is going to happen, how would it not be experiencing that? And if it is experiencing that, what part of that AI would be unnatural, not natural?
I never necessarily said that AI wouldn't be natural. However, I am very skeptical as to whether or not that AI is having a actual subjective experience in the way that I think you and I are.
No, you just said it couldn't experience it. So if there is an AI and it is processing, hang on, no, let me finish. And if it is processing information, right? You basically said that if it experiences information, then it can't be natural. If we've designed the AI, we've built it, we've done everything to make it, what part of it isn't natural if it can experience that
You're
stuff?
putting words in my mouth. When did I say it wasn't natural?
That was Danny.
I didn't say that.
I do apologize.
Mark, if I ask Siri what color is typically seen at whatever 600 nanometer, the wavelength 600 nanometer, does Siri actually see the color?
This is the issue. That's the exact issue. It's like when you experience something, the experience itself has some quality that supposedly cannot be quantified in this other way. I would argue that that's not, I mean, if we went back 100 years, we've slowly been quantifying this kind of stuff, quantifying how we taste things.
I'm not
how
talking about quantifying. I'm talking about experiencing it for yourself.
I understand, but what you're saying is that the experience itself is this intangible thing that, like, to see the color red is not something that can be quantified. And
No, I can quantify. Listen, Jason, I can quantify. Let's say I can't see red. I might be able to quantify how my neighbor can see red. I will never experience red.
But we can quantify what that experience entails in your brain. Like, what is your brain doing when you're experiencing that?
No, I'm not talking about quantifying the experience. I'm talking about experiencing the experience.
Yeah, but that ultimately it comes down to biochemical processes.
But your ability to quantify it doesn't get you anywhere.
But the experience itself is biochemical.
The definition
That's the argument
is
that we're
the
down
definition is I experience something different than you, therefore it's a phenomena. And that's ridiculous.
Being able to
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I'll say one thing, I'll let Leo go. You can quantify something as best as any supercomputer can. However, if you don't have the faculties to experience it, the quantification is purely abstract. Whereas for the person that does have the faculties to experience it, it's a phenomenon versus an abstraction.
There's no such thing as a phenomenon with your brain. None. Zero. Get rid of
and
it.
so Leo wants to make a comment, and then we're gonna add brain bug in.
Cast it out.
What I would say is that phenomenological experiences consist in the physical stimuli that result in them.
Yeah.
Which means that if you can explain the physical stimuli, it doesn't matter that there's a difference in the phenomenological experience of it.
Why not? It matters.
It all consists in the physical aspects that give rise to the experience of whatever is being informed by that stimuli.
But what do you mean doesn't matter? What if someone wants to experience the thing?
I hope they have the means by which to experience it.
Well, this is it right here. And
either like with sight, you either have eyes or you don't. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And if so, describing something doesn't get you anywhere if you can't experience it.
Not necessarily.
Okay, so what good is it for Helen Keller? She could be effectively a supercomputer in terms of how smart she is. If she just, imagine her thinking, I want to see what red looks like. It doesn't get her anywhere to compute it perfectly.
Of course, she doesn't have the ability to physically experience it.
Exactly.
Which is why she doesn't have the phenomenological experience, which corroborates the statement that I made that our phenomenological experiences consist in the physical stimuli that result in them.
And we keep on going back and forth, but actually, we're going to get brain bug in here.
This is literally the worst argument in the entire freaking world.
Oh no, this is actually not about.
Guys, let's let brain bug.
That's a little harsh, man.
Yeah, I appreciate these guys' position. It's an interesting position, so it's not
definitely interesting, Soldier. Like everyone else seems to be thinking it's interesting, except you. You just hate it. You're just shitting on it.
Well, maybe he has a reason.
You know. I hate the fact that somehow you have come to a conclusion that any different brain experience must be a phenomenon rather than the natural brain doing that to you.
Phenomenon.
And I just don't see how you get there. I really don't.
Soldier, we might be missing terminology, but I'll let whoever wants to go.
And okay. And so we're actually going to switch in. And Brain Bug, we are Skeptic and Ranting. Thank you so very much, by the way, Danny. And how are you, Brain Bug? And what is your thoughts on consciousness or anything we've been talking about tonight?
Well, I'm doing all right, I suppose. And just to jump right into the conversation you guys were having, the Helen Keller comparison that was made there is not actually that bad, because we can, take it to a point where we're discussing it as if she has the software basically, but not the hardware. Are we interpreting that she doesn't have the hardware? I mean, because So she doesn't have the sensory input, right? So her brain has never experienced red, but does her brain have the ability to conceptualize red? But I mean, it never will. But that's like the software, right? So the program's loaded in there for her to experience red, but the brain's never had the hardware hooked up. So why would you assume that implies anything besides a natural process
or a physical process?
Right.
Yeah, physics.
Exactly.
Well, because what?
And thank you so very much, Rainbow.
Because describe it. Okay, here's what it gets down to. I can describe how Helen Keller isn't experiencing red. Okay, I can say here's the molecules, here's the chemistry, here's the math, here's the physics. This is why Helen Keller isn't experiencing red. Then I can take the person that is experiencing red and saying this is the physics, this is the chemistry, this is the math of why they are experiencing red. After I do that, I have not experienced red either way. So how does one experience?
Okay, well, we could look at the way that. Hold on, we could look at the way that your brain reacts. We could hook you up and look at the way your brain reacts when you experience red, and then we could look at someone like Helen Keller, whose brain's never experienced it. Those areas of her brain are dormant. They're not.
No, I know. But I'm saying the actual. All you're doing is now describing person A experiencing red, person B not experiencing red. What? How do you So to the person that experiences red. That it's the experience itself, the fleeting ephemeral experience they're feeling. That's what we're getting at here. We're not getting at the description of why they're feeling.
I don't know if I describe red as a feeling.
The qualia is the result of physical stimuli.
Yeah, but no matter how well you describe what gives rise to qualia, you never get to impose the qualia onto anything else.
You can program a computer to differentiate between colors, so it's experiencing and differentiating between colors, and it's not just describing them, it's making
Wait, hold on
here.
I got a really quick question for Sunflower. Sunflower, can we differentiate between X-ray and gamma ray electromagnetic radiation?
Only because we have
No.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So my question is, do humans phenomenologically experience either X-ray or gamma ray radiation?
No.
Part,
I guess no. Yeah, fine.
No.
Fine.
So we can categorize things despite the fact that we can't phenomenologically.
Oh yeah, but that's my point. Categorizing things is something we're great at. But I'm asking you to now. Where's you can categorize something even if you don't experience anything. That's what a computer does.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So now
Right.
So now I'm distinguishing the categorization of things from the experience of them.
The categorization is a result of the experience.
I mean, are you saying
we categorize X-rays and gamma rays? Didn't you just say we can?
Yes, but we still experience them.
Well, are you saying that?
You just asked me if you just asked me.
No. I asked you if we phenomenologically experience them. No, but we still experience
redundant.
them.
That's redundant.
No, it's not.
I think Bruce Banner experienced gamma radiation, to be honest with you.
When you experience something, is there something like I look at red and I see red, and let's say I have an emotional response, like I cry, I have it evokes some euphoria or whatever. Is that caused from biochemical processes?
Are you asking Sunflower?
I'm asking Sunflower.
Whether it, I'll, for the sake of your example, yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
Now that's fine. Now, where does that get you if you want to understand what it feels like to experience that, and you don't have the faculties to experience it?
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to connect the actual physical processes with what you're calling this experiential aspect that is intangible in the sense that it can't be quantified by a computer.
No. It can be.
I shouldn't say it that way. Like the computer can't experience it.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
The computer can't experience seeing the color red.
Exactly. Yes, thank you. That's exactly what I'm saying.
The computer can't experience it, but is experiencing the color a biochemical process?
Doesn't a
It
computer?
may very well be, but
Okay.
what is that? Where does that get you if you want to experience it for yourself, but you can't?
Well,
You could describe it as a biochemical process, but
Yeah.
will you ever be able to experience it if you don't have the biochemical faculties to do so? No. Therefore, the experience is somewhere in between the description and the actual experience.
The experience itself is a result of what's going on biochemically.
I just have to reject this argument outright because basically what you just said is A equals A, and in your definition, A is a phenomena where all the rest of us go, you know what? I might see a different color of red than you see the different color of red. I might see this different than you see. We all accept the fact that we have different experiences, and none of us describe it as a phenomenon. None of us do.
We all do. You're missing.
None of us do. None of us do. None of us do. None of us do. We accept it. We accept it as a brain state that is a natural thing. And
that can still be a phenomenon.
Me seeing red versus your color of red that you see is different, must be a phenomenon, is just a BS argument.
Let me
technically speaking, it would be a phenomenon because it's some sort of experiential. It's an experience of stimuli.
With all due respect,
describing it. I'm saying the way he's describing it is fallacious.
Soldier, with all due respect, you're conflating. When people say phenomenon, they usually talk to something like spectacular. Phenomena is not something spectacular or extraordinary. If you look at the definition of phenomena,
phenomena is like with an A is just a plural of phenomenon.
Yes, but I'm saying colloquially, when people use the word it was a phenomenon. They're usually saying like it was something like
that's not what Soldier of Science is saying.
What?
Yes, he is. Mark.
I don't know what you're
Loud noises.
What I am saying is, what is the difference between your reality of what you experience and you putting it into the category of this is my natural brain state versus this must be something different and we're going to categorize it as a phenomena? That is what I'm trying to say.
Phenomena is the first thing you said. That's they're not mutually exclusive. Phenomena is just things you experience.
Wait, hold on. I got this really quick. Soldier, what color is this lighter?
It's yellow.
Blue. Yellow. Oh, hold on. Yellow. This is yellow. You seeing this lighter and knowing that it's yellow is a phenomenon. That is entirely physical in my world.
Thank you, Leo.
It is physical. It is described by physical things, but it is still a phenomenon.
Fair enough. Why are we giving two definitions for this?
I don't know anybody else.
We're not.
We are. Yeah, this whole argument has been two definitions for either a phenomena, either it's a phenomena or a natural brain state. Which one do you want to choose?
I don't think that those are mutually exclusive terms.
Thank you. They're not mutually exclusive, Soldier. You don't know the terms. I'm sorry. At some point, you got tripped up and you thought that phenomena means it's not the result of a brain state. No one has said that, especially not me.
I think
I don't know where you got this
differentiating that.
No, we haven't, dude. You got tripped up.
Go for it.
And so, guys, we're going to go for about another 30 minutes. Mark graciously said he's getting hungry, so we're going to give him his outro. And then I think Nick said that he wants to come in. And if anyone else out there, I've unpinned the link. But if you still have something to say on the subject, just tell me in chat, and I'll get you on here to say your intro and outro. But Mark, we have been skeptic and ranting about consciousness. I hope you had a fun time. And what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, it was cool, and thank you everybody for being here. I had fun. So thank you everybody. Great to talk to you. Do like and subscribe, everyone. And I guess I'll see you in the future.
Bye, Mark.
See you, Mark.
Thank you so very much, Mark.
Good night, Mark.
And okay, The seats are filling up fast. Nick, if you want to come on in, feel free to. If you, someone else, like I said, if you still have want to get your voice out there, if your consciousness is really driving you to speak about consciousness, come on and talk about it.
We got a warm seat here.
We got a warm seat, and
I got
there
a
we go.
question for the panel here.
Go ahead.
At what level do you think that of life do you think consciousness becomes something that we can directly recognize?
I think that's hard to answer because can a bacteria recognize something that is food from something that is not food?
Yeah.
I would say yes. I mean, it just, and this is something I don't know if anybody ever caught this, but this was, I want to say about like September, maybe October of last year. Mr. Batman and Aaron Raw had a discussion, and Aaron Raw expressed the same sentiment that consciousness comes on a gradient.
Leo, I have to interrupt.
Oh shit!
Calling
Go ahead.
a discussion is stretching the.
Okay,
truth
I'm not trying to mince fucking terms here. All right, guy. I'm trying to get a point across. It was Mr. Batman. Obviously, it wasn't a discussion. It was Mr. Batman. I don't know what he is or what he does, but that's what it was. Anyway, and Aaron expressed the same sentiment that like most life forms have a consciousness to some degree. So I think that this is the case with, not to digress too much, but I think that this is the case with a lot of things in reality, that we tend to think of it as divided by a line. On one side it's this, on one side it's not, when in reality most things are a gradient, that there isn't a line when you can really define where something is and something is not relative to some standard or what have you.
Love it. How about you, Peter?
I fully agree that it's a spectrum. We know for a fact that certain animals show compassion, show social behavior. In order for them to do that, they need to have some of awareness, and not only self-awareness, but awareness of what's happening around them. I don't know if anyone else saw it. There was a tweet somewhere on Twitter where a blind dog fell in the water, and the family had another dog, and that dog did everything in its power to rescue it.
Oh man!
It went on
I was
for a
gonna
couple of
say,
minutes.
yeah. I don't think it might have been the same one, but there's also a lot of cases where dogs that are blind, the family will get them a dog companion, and they form a natural bond. Like there's dogs that have seeing eye dogs.
Yes. Yes.
I've seen stuff like that in cats. I've had a cat that, gosh, like my cat Yoko, even like in other cats I've had, it's almost like they can understand like when I'm not feeling well, and they'll come up and be affectionate and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely think like animals, you know, I agree with that sentiment that, you know, there's consciousness at all levels.
Yeah.
Animals are by every right.
They can even identify the things that you like, and those will be the things that they throw off the tables and the desks because they need to.
I have a cat.
Cats can identify themselves in a mirror. Elephants elephants are very, very intelligent. They
Elephants
have a high level of self-awareness. Yes.
Elephants can make selfies.
I have a cat. I have a cat.
That's cool. So do I. We have 5 in the house, actually.
So I
used to have 30.
I think this is
30
this is a very important argument because it ultimately comes down to the list that we create when we actually eat animals. For example, I told you I'm not a vegan, but we create lists of animals we eat, and a lot of that comes down to what we believe consciousness is in animals. And what I would even say to that is, if you could even define consciousness based on a human and then expand it to an animal kingdom, I would further argue, is consciousness even important for survival? You have gut bacteria. You have gut bacteria that is dependent on you. You have COVID-19 that's dependent on humans to kill them. You have cancer.
Wait,
that's
what?
I mean, listen, for viruses,
No, this is a good point.
You know,
This is a good point. Let her finish that.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying that consciousness is a definition that we have given to a species, which is us, that we think is important for survival, and it might not be. It might not be.
I think it depends on the level that you're talking about, because for a virus is not conscious. At least like
are
not.
you sure?
I don't think not in the same, not in the way that we would describe it as how we experience
I would agree. Yeah, I don't think a virus.
I would agree. This
Viruses, what they do is they take over others. They take over cells in your body to basically,
to reproduce themselves.
It's like,
This
it's
is
like
why the indescribable nature that we're all trying to explain here, that humans have, that other things don't have, is just, it's God given. It's essentially the divine.
Not God-given. Wait. Hold on. Let Sunflower explain himself.
It's the divine tether, because there is something about the inexplicable nature of other people that we see in them. We see intelligence in their eyes. We see, oh, this person is sort of making decisions and imposing their will. We see other animals and things. We go, okay, it's kind of alive, but like it's not like me or my family members. So I would say if you want to really solve that problem, just look to God and realize that when God
already solved it.
We're created in God's image.
Even as a theist,
before we
go there, before we
the
go
guy
there,
was
Sunflower,
almost done, and you guys jumped in. He was
No,
almost done.
He was almost
He
done.
was and
before we
everybody
go-
jumped in. Like
Leo,
let the guy
Leo,
finish
shut
his
up.
sentence.
Okay, you know what? Overtalk me again, asshole, and see what happens.
Thank you, Leo.
Sunflower, before we go to God, can you first demonstrate that the God that you're talking about actually exists? And when you've done that, then we can see whether
Can we have a
guys.
night where this doesn't become a whole atheist versus theist thing?
All I'm saying is, look, we're created in God's image.
Amy is talking, y'all. Amy,
No, we're not.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Moderation.
Before we go down that route,
That explains why you have no capacity to focus.
Amy, can I just?
No, let Amy go. Let Amy go. Come on, let Amy go.
Well, I want to get Nick in. Was it something, a question? Is it because I don't want to do questions yet. In a second, hold on, just one sec. Hold that question just for one thought.
Let me respond to Sun, since he directly, tried to challenge me there.
No, we didn't.
Let's let Amy get Nick in.
Can I can let you respond to it? Will you be able to hold on to it after till Nick, or do you think it'll fade away?
Write it down.
I'll write it down. Yes, you know me.
Okay, sounds good. And I was being serious. I was not joking. You can come back to that thought. And okay, Nick.
Good job.
We are skeptic and ranting on consciousness. My little brain buddies over there. How are you, and what are your thoughts?
Oh, Nicholas.
Hey, all. I am well. My thoughts. Oh, dear Lord. Yeah. Too bad this isn't an interesting topic. It's not like nobody else wants in here. Holy smoke. Well, I'm a naturalist, so I know, big shock, but I do think there's been some talking past. I've been enjoying the points a lot. I think there's some equivocation with what does it mean to experience something. I think most of us use experience and observe and measure in the same way, and I think Sunflower is saying that in fact experience is something different than observe. And if you could identify that difference, I think just the act of identifying that difference, at least in Sunflower's mind, if I'm not putting words in Sunflower's mouth, just identifying that difference would be where consciousness lies. And I would be happy to accept that, but for the fact that to the best of my ability to understand, I don't see where, if you get down to the hardware, as it were, if you get down to the metal on what's happening, I don't I haven't observed any difference between a observation or measurement and experience.
Wait. I could really quickly explain this. Didn't Leo say like gamma rays, X-rays, right? You can measure things and say, okay, this wave is putting a blip on my instrument at this interval, and this one is at that interval. But if you had maybe extrasensory perception, then you would say, when this, not only does the X-ray put a blip on my instrument, it looks a certain way, it feels a certain way, it sounds a certain way, it smells a certain way. It's not just registering on your measuring device at a different level. It's actually, you're getting sensory inputs, right? That's why after ultraviolet, we need an instrument, whereas before ultraviolet in that range, we actually can say, I can describe blue, green, or like there's a sensory nature to the wavelengths.
Yes.
But then outside of our sensor of the confined nature of our sensory aptitude, we have to now use instruments, and it becomes an abstraction. Now it's just a reading on a device. It's no longer a giving us sensory information. That's the distinction I would make between observe and experience.
And I think that distinction can be very important under any number of circumstances. But I think the argument I would then make is, well, you're giving or I think what the argument that the others were using was, on some level, my eyes are of course just making a measurement as well, and on some level, all my senses are just making a measurement. So there seems to be this assertion that there is a entity of some kind that is receiving those, that is superior to that of the device, and I would assume that is what God has given us, our consciousness on that level. But I am unaware of any evidence of that existing.
Do you not experience okay, if you were to have a device that registers, a putrid smell, it can differentiate. It can say, oh, this is the smell of something putrid and rancid. You could measure every smell, but if you can't physically smell, these would not trigger any kind of reaction in you. All you would be able to do is hold up your smell reading device and say, this is, I guess, what this is considered putrid or rancid. This is sweet. This is, floral. But if you're experiencing them, they can radically alter your behavior. They can trigger all kinds of things.
Of course, which is why that distinction can be important. But I don't think that goes to consciousness.
Can I ask Sunflower a quick question?
That's exactly what consciousness
all
is.
biochemical.
If it's a measurement that's
Thank you.
intrinsically related to your behavior and your response to stimuli, it's no longer just a measurement. It's now a part of your phenomenological waking experience in the world.
No,
Sunflower is the phenomenological experiences that we have. Do they depend on the reception of external stimuli as a result of some sort of physical process occurring in the reality that exists external to us?
Yeah, I mean, I've answered this. I think that there's no reason for me to say no to that.
Okay, so then our phenomenological experience is fundamentally reduced to
the
reception of physical stimuli that we receive through a variety of different ways.
Okay. Let me break this down in the most simple way possible.
Manner in which our brain interprets that.
Let me break this down in the most simple way possible. 2 + 2 is 4. Okay, that's fine. Now, if I were to draw out an equation for what it's like for a human being to experience euphoria, I would not just say 2 + 2 equals 4 is a coherent mathematical equation, and then compare that to the one which invokes a feeling of. These are two categorically.
Can I have you repeat that? Can I have? I'm genuinely. I'm sorry, but I lost track.
No problem. So we can describe the world in math and physics and all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are some relationships, like the most basic one I can think of. 2 + 2 is 4. You can say that, and it's you can understand exactly what it means. There's no actual phenomenological aspect to the meaning of 2 + 2 is 4. Okay, it's sort of.
I agree. It's abstract.
You can understand exactly what it means just by looking at it. Okay.
Yes, it's
now,
abstract.
if I were to show you all the complex math that goes into a brain experiencing euphoria, I can look at that all I want. I will never experience the euphoria for myself. Therefore, am I actually understanding what it's expressing, or am I just looking at an abstraction? That's what I'm getting at here.
And that depends on the sense in which you mean expression. What is the sense in which you're using the term expression?
What is?
Well, if I inject you,
or even more so, you don't understand your brain state, and therefore it must be something that I can't explain. And
no, Soldier, we've already went over this. Soldier,
not a natural brain state.
The word phenomena is natural. That's not a problem. Why are you going back?
I'm just saying. Why do you go into, well, this part of my brain where I'm thinking about stuff,
Soldier,
must be different outside.
Soldier, have you?
Why do we go there?
Are you still stuck on the fact that phenomena is natural? Because we've already gotten
even
over
if you
this.
say phenomena and natural, why do you get into supernatural? Where do we go into supernatural from?
When have I used that word tonight? Can anyone tell me?
Let me ask you this.
I don't think Sunflowers use that word.
Yes, he
Thank
has.
you. Thank you.
Yes, he has.
I have not used that word.
If I inject you with MDMA and you have all of the exact feelings of love for a human being, even though you haven't had anything that would trigger that other than the chemicals I've given you, and or let's say I give you LSD and you start to see the color red and you start to see all these other colors. What you are experiencing at this point is not something that could be observed or measured outside, because you're just experiencing this yourself. Now, my question is, are these things real?
Are they real? Well, not to pivot at all, but I think that's not exactly the question I was asking.
I think that isn't the question. I agree that's not the question you're asking, but there's a reason I'm asking this, because I'm still trying to parse out what it is that you're saying that is the agent of this experience, and so I'm trying to get closer and closer to the metal, as they say, because
let me take your question and repurpose it. So if you were trying to understand something, right? If I was trying to explain to you, there's this thing called, let's say, let's just say like you said, what it feels like to be on MDMA. I was like, and let's just call that feeling, for the sake of this argument, let's call that euphoria. And I was like, Nick, there's this thing called euphoria, and it's whatever. It's great. It's maybe I think it's bad, whatever it is. And then you said, well, what is it? What is it like? And I just gave you a math equation. Would you ever? You would never actually know what I was talking about until you experienced it. You could say, oh, well, I know why you experienced that feeling, because I can look at the brain chemistry going on when you take that drug. The point is, there's this ethereal thing that's the experience itself that you can't.
Not ethereal, it's phenomenal.
But
fine, whatever.
But let's get.
I'm using fancy.
But I'm not asking about what somebody else can measure of that experience. I'm asking what you as the individual, is that a real experience? And the reason why is this: if the answer is yes, that's a real experience when you're seeing colors that aren't actually there, then what you're saying is that there is another agent that is internal, that is the subject of this experience. If you say no, it's not real, because there's actually then you're saying it is just the consequence of these chemical actions. And I think what most people would suggest here on this panel, I believe, is that it's not real in a meaningful sense. It is real to you as the observer, but it actually isn't real. You have simply stimulated it with some other chemical.
Okay, well then that's interesting, but first of all, I would say it's definitely real, but then to entertain your anticipated response, if you're saying it's not real because it's just a stimulated thing, then nothing is real.
Well, to some extent, I think that would be the argument, that there is no way that I'm aware of to be able to differentiate between what we experience and whether or not there's anything on the outside. That's the whole point of why solipsism can actually be made as an argument, is because there's no way to prove, there's no way to fight against the the evil genius argument, or the notion that we're not all in the matrix.
Well, and so, like, what are we talking about? Like last Thursdayism?
I'm with you so far, Nick. Sorry, if that I don't know what that is, Leo, but if
It's
you
it's sort of what Nick was playing to, that this
Like
idea that
brain
there's
of
no
that.
way that you can prove that the whole world wasn't created the way that we've experienced it with the history and everything last Thursday, and we just don't know about it. It's just called last Thursdayism.
I mean,
yeah,
I
I think there's a
great
really
term
good
for
argument.
solipsism.
I think there's a really good argument to be made against solipsistic worldviews like that, in the fact that in order to understand the reality as we actually do measure and observe it as consistently as we possibly can around us, we have to assume that solipsistic worldviews are in fact false in order to do so, which seems to lend a lot of credence to the idea that solipsistic
Wait,
worldviews do
why?
not properly capture, because solipsistic worldviews are essentially arguing that there's no way that we can determine whether or not the reality that we experience is the way that we experience it, or that anything that we experience is the result of something beyond whatever we experience that created us to experience what we're experiencing at any given moment up to the moment that we're currently experiencing. So I mean it's a entirely unfalsifiable ideology, and the way that we experience reality seems to suggest that there is a reality that exists objectively and independently of our experience of it, and that we can come to understand what this reality is because we exist within inside it. So in order to make sense of the reality that we exist in, we have to assume that a solipsistic worldview is false in order to do so, which seems to indicate that solipsistic worldviews have absolutely no utility whatsoever, which I think most people would probably agree with.
And I just want to say, when solipsists throw a party,
oh, well, that's all right.
everyone's invited. I know, I'm sorry. It was a bad joke.
No,
hi, Danny.
Yeah, I had a point that was not on solipsism, but I'm
so sorry. I was waiting.
Don't worry. The point I'm trying to make is there a separate agent other than the actual biology that is doing the measuring? Because I think our minds are measuring. Our eyes are measuring. There's all these chemical things that we can observe and interfere with. So all of this hardware, as it was put earlier, is in fact measuring things already. And so if we're going to draw a distinction between measuring and experiencing, there has to be this other agent that's being added that is actually doing the experiencing.
There is. It's your eyes, because after a certain point, you can no
hold
longer see the visible. You can't.
I think that misses the point.
No. You can't see outside of the visible spectrum, but you can continue to measure it.
No, when I say measure, I don't mean I mean me personally, not with the assistance of another. My eyes are measuring. That's what they do.
So then you would actually object. You would object to Leo's idea of being able to measure X rays and gamma rays. Then,
well, no, I think
no,
he's speaking about it in a different sense.
I don't think what I'm saying is, in addition to what his computers and what his instruments are doing, my eyes are in fact also measuring. They are doing this in a sense that can be in fact itself measured. So my eyes are not inventing this; they are measuring the light themselves. They have biochemical means of doing this. Now, I think if you get into all of the biology, that biology that's doing the measurement.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to let Danny go. I think the measurements of your eyes are giving rise to an experience. That's what I would say, but I'll let Danny.
Well, yes, but your eyes measure things. That's our ears.
You can even see
what
that
our
your eyes
senses
measure
are.
things, and blind people, their eyes will still react to different light stimulation. So
Exactly, our senses are ways that humans essentially measure reality and their place within it.
Yeah, your eyes will keep functioning towards light, even if the brain's not picking up those signals.
Okay, what's the point?
If I take what Sunflower is saying and put it in the way maybe you might read in a philosophy textbook, it's going to look something like this, right? The natural sciences study the third person.
Hey, Danny, is your microphone on? It's hard to hear you.
I can hear you.
Is this better?
Yeah, that's way better.
That is better.
The idea is that a lot of philosophers want to distinguish the first person point of view and the third person. And so there's a question about what the natural sciences approach, right? They approach, I think there's large agreement, the third person perspective, right? So when we study the aluminum of this drink, right, I'm not studying a first person point of view. I'm studying it from a third person point of view, right? There's a bit of a paradox there. A lot of people talk about that, but the idea is that what an experience is implies, or when you analyze what an experience is, it has to be understood in terms of someone's experience. Okay. And so my experience, your experience, those possessives are far more strong than something like that's my aluminum can, or this is my house, or this is Amy's stream, right? It's deeply, deeply personal and connected to the subject. So here's, I think, what Sunflower might be trying to say. One thing you could say, okay, that for me to know your experience as intimately as you would require for me to be you. And so
Exactly.
I can't get to it, right? I can't, science, if it's understood as something that can approach things, right? It can't approach something like unexperienced because it's someone's experience and no one else's.
Perfect. Thank you.
And okay, guys, I think we're actually going to move into our outros. It has been actually a blast. I'm so glad we actually got to this topic. James was like, freaking get to it. And we did. And okay, we're moving to our woohoo! And okay, Nick, you were the last one to join us, so you're the first one to go. We have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness. You know, as you said, we like to keep it light, right? I hope you had a good time, and what are your final thoughts?
I'd very much like to give you my final thoughts, but I don't think I can until you define we, please.
Can we define we?
You said we've been skeptic, right? Okay. No, thank you very much for having me on. It was a blast, and I just wanted to come in and chat for a few minutes. So thanks so much for having me on. But that's it. Short outro. You can go on to the next one. Thanks again.
Wait, hold on.
Nick, quick question, Nick. I have a quick question for you.
God damn it! So do I.
No, this is off topic. I just want to know how you feeling today after that beating from Darth Dawkins.
God damn it! Why'd you have to steal my thunder? All right. I was going to ask him how that went.
It was an educational experience, if that was what's called a beating. Okay, I certainly don't view it that way, but to each their own. It was an interesting experience, so I'm glad I met the fellow.
Wow. Why are you acting like a snot-nosed 16-year-old?
Oh my god, that means he uses that line a lot. I'm starting to put pieces together now.
Oh my god.
And you know what? I'll save that for backstage. But
that explains why you have no capacity to focus.
Focus.
I can't.
What did he say? I didn't catch that. Sorry, my pizza.
I'm sorry.
That explains why you have no capacity to focus.
Right.
Mom? What?
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Focus. Focus, damn it.
And okay, Brain Bug, we have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness. I hope you had a good time, and what are your final thoughts?
Well, yeah, I got some compelling arguments here. It's always interesting to hear people's perspectives on different topics like this. Always like to pick Danny's brain about these kind of topics too. Poke at him a little bit. Peter, I did find a clip I think you need for your soundboard, and I'll message it for you. I think you need it. It's Darth Dawkins saying something to PZ Myers that I just thought was hilarious.
You know you're bullshitting. I know you're bullshitting, and everyone else in the room knows you're bullshitting.
They sure do. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, subscribe to the Brain Bug YouTube channel.
Subscribe.
That's right. Check out all the awesome stuff.
I'm gonna hunt you down. I'm gonna fucking do nasty things to you. Brian, please let me know. I'm still expanding it, so I really need that.
Yeah,
everything.
Just gotta stay
people
focused.
Can contribute.
Oh, I'm gonna keep. They do it to themselves.
Okay.
Okay.
You know what? Overtalk me again, asshole, and see what happens.
Yes. See what happens.
I think both Nick and I saw that. Oh, okie dokie.
What do you mean by saw?
Yeah, saw felt. What do you mean by saw? Is that your ultimate?
Well,
Is this the
I
ultimate
experienced
saw?
it, but I didn't observe it.
Damn, Lactheus.
Have you ever
Oh,
been
that's my new-
diagnosed with ADD?
Oh my god.
Is there anybody here who hasn't interacted with him?
I haven't.
I haven't.
You're lucky.
By the way, I just wanted to state that I have been diagnosed with ADD. It means above Darth Dawkins.
Oh, you're so cool. You're so badass, man. I wish you. Jeepers, mister. You're really strong.
I'm telling you, Peter coming to style on us all tonight.
Did you listen to Peter Drucker's response?
We did.
Peter Drucker.
Listen.
And okay, we're moving right along. Cassandra, Amaretto, we have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness. I need my brain buddy back there. I hope you had a fun time. And what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, no, very interesting stream. I kind of had to pop in and out a little bit, but yeah, this is the content I'm kind of here for. As somebody like trying to go into mental health. You know, I have interest in doing like clinical research on stuff with consciousness. So definitely good conversation. I think we definitely should bring this back up again. Because obviously,
oh yeah,
everybody loves talking about the brain.
Oh,
So and how we perceive things.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, fun times. And then just remember, ladies and gentlemen, and them bees, that if you're going to be salty to me, make sure you bring the tequila first.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, fuck
And
off, Mr. 30-year-old. You're done.
Lime's good. Lemon.
Tequila.
I want every time someone says shots now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's COVID. It doesn't matter if you have the flu, polio. I will say without doubt,
Shots. Literally having that, like, gifts of that just sent to me as I was getting my second vaccine on Friday. And I'm like, I wish, but that'll be later.
I know, that'd be fun too. And okay, we're moving right along. Pieter, we have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness. What? I hope you had a good time. And what are your final thoughts?
Okay. My final thoughts. So it is, let me look at the clock. It is coming up 8 a.m. So when it comes to consciousness, mine might be leaving the building already or have left. I learned a few things. I'll have to watch it again, to be honest, because I'm not that bright. So I'll watch it again and see if I can learn a few things. But it, as always, has been a lot of fun. My guest host still had a message for Oz. Do you want to?
So I would like to know, how is Oz's reasoning as a grown adult any different than being a snot-nosed pothead teenager who's just simply being argumentative?
Yeah,
I like how he has the
that's
same
too much.
insult.
You can go now. Go. Okay, so as I was saying, I hope I learned a few things, and as always, it's been a lot of fun being here, Amy. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Peter. Is it Peter or is it Peter? Now I'm
Peter.
Yeah, Peter. Oh, it's Peter.
sold.
Actually, Amaretto is correct. That's the correct
Peter?
pronunciation.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. It's a skill. I have it just from learning like a few different languages, like not very long. I can't speak any of them like, fluently now, but I can remember how to pronunciate things. It's nuts.
And I suck at pronouncing things. So that's the exact opposite.
It's good. It's good that you didn't say Gary because.
Why did you call me Gary?
You know what's funny? I spent so much effort trying to not trigger him, and it didn't work. It didn't I didn't call him Gary.
Yeah, me too. I went out of my way. I didn't even when he started to go into the gendering thing, and I was just like, okay, I'm just
haven't gotten
gonna
that
call
far.
her Amy.
I need to watch the rest of that. but I can't believe that he went there. Like, because I've
why?
seen people's
Amaretto.
comments.
He's an asshole.
Amaretto,
Of course he went there.
here's a tiny snippet.
Yeah, Mr. Newman lost connection.
Yeah, that's one of his sycophants.
You mean his simps? They're just simps.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say, and I feel bad. I shouldn't say.
No,
once
they're
again,
literally.
you hear me his
They
language,
literally
but
are simping for him.
I'm glad I get the
This is why-
soundboard so much more. When the soundboard goes off, I'm like, okay, now
Oh,
it's funny.
now I get
Now
it.
I'm-
But Amy, it's like I told you, you need to start your own simp army to go against ours.
Well, can I just say, Nick, and this is horrible, and but that's okay. When I was like, was it me? Was it me? And then you came in like sweet as butter, and he started, and I was like, oh, this will be different. And then he turned on you. And then I was like, oh, no, it wasn't me. This is Darth Shtick. Okay, gotcha. He calls everyone a 14-year-old. He calls everyone, an idiot or whatever.
To be
It
fair,
sounds like he has a superiority
Amy,
complex.
I think you handled him pretty well. It's one
Do
of
you think so?
my,
That I
my
did?
favorite. Yes.
Really? Okay,
I
good.
actually do.
Because I really didn't want to. I know that his thing, I don't want to say his thing is he wishes he doesn't piss off atheists. If you listen to Antangelo, Darth is like, look, guys, I know I'm mean, but why won't the atheists talk with me? Dear diary.
Well, and I think when I first came in, I think he assumed I was just somebody off the street and had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. And then when I started he mentioned the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's the first paragraph. You're ignoring the rest.
Right,
So you're also
exactly.
ignoring other encyclopedias like the Oxford and the Cambridge encyclopedias, which don't say that. He's like, you want to talk? I have every encyclopedia of philosophy there. I was like, great, you do. What about the Oxford? I understand that Stanford's the gold standard. That's fine. That doesn't mean it's the only one.
And not only that, but there's two things that I don't like that makes it almost impossible to have an honest conversation is when you don't, when you don't accept I don't know as an answer. I don't know is not acceptable.
Right.
And he doesn't answer questions back.
Nope.
Like my whole shtick is the Socratic method. Like Cassie watching Oz do his shtick, that makes me go bonkers. I love that shit because I view in the debate community a really good question as a really good punch instead of an ad hominem, which most people confuse as like punches in a debate. I believe a really good question is actually better. And if he doesn't
Why do we need to do that?
I don't know, darn.
Listen, you're a buffoon.
And he had one. And the other thing is, like I said, listening to you, it probably felt crappy for you, but then it made me feel better because it was like he did the same. You asked a question, and it was an honest. Okay, I'm now asking for clarification, and he went clarification. Oh, why are you guys even in the debate community? Do you know anything? It's like we just asked you for clarification. Can you shut and just give clarification instead of beretting? He's not the only creationist, or he's a precept, so he gets to be super annoying. But he's not the only one who does that jam.
He's intriguing.
No, it's not.
I thought that was maximal charity, though. That was maximal charity, I think, when you said makes it almost impossible to debate him. I was just like, oh, there's a lot of charity coming out of Amy on that one.
Like, we're talking about this in the side chat, and it's like, coming to the realization, it's like, his life must be so shitty offline for him to need to try and flex so hard online. It's, there's that saying, fuck the haters. But he seems so fucking self-conscious and insecure just from listening to him. And the more I hear these sound bites from the soundboard, I'm like, this is very sad. Like, and it almost I feel bad for him in a sense. Like, I know he's a complete and total asshole, and he can go fuck himself for misgendering somebody intentionally.
That's right. I keep on forgetting that because that stuff. It's just so funny because on Tangelo, I say giving him hearts. He was trying to be nice, but while also talk to Darth. But
I would like to have a role play.
Like like Darth almost reminds me of this guy we had in the furry community. He went by Crusader Cat, and he was
the furry community.
Yeah, I'm a furry. I'm involved in the anthropomorphic community.
Oh my god! This is a whole new topic.
Yeah, Amy wants me to make her persona. But that's another
All right.
story.
Well, hold on, because I was about to leave, and I'm gonna stay now.
Yeah, I think it's time for my outro. I think it's time for my outro.
Copy page. This is right. This is my jam.
This isn't new. She's already said this 100 times before.
I mean, my avatar is like literally my persona in Japanese Lolita. So,
it's awesome.
But no, like he reminds me of this guy that used to go by Crusader Cat. Like this guy was very socially awkward, and it turns out like he was like suspected of there's supposedly pictures of him engaging in bestiality, and he's aligned with like neo-Nazi white supremacist like
that
alt-right stuff.
So quickly.
Yeah.
Like that just went.
This escalated.
But this reminds me. This is what Darth reminds me of. It's,
honestly, if you're a furrier, I mean, are you more worried about the bestiality? Are you more worried about the bestiality or the Nazism?
A furrier.
Both. I mean, it's all bad news.
Yeah, but I think I agree that the bestiality, at least you could sit there and say, okay, there's a progression. With the Nazism, that's a bit of a that was a jump. I was not expecting it. I don't think furries is a gateway to fascism.
No.
But there actually are a decent chunk of right wing furs. Like a lot of conventions are actually just starting to now ban them.
Furries?
No, but
I literally listen. I made a shirt. It was just, listen.
That's where the Führer comes from.
I want to come back. I want to come back on that. I mean, Nazi.
Yeah,
Nazis,
I'm sure you do.
Yes, Nazi's bad. Nazi's bad. But if you're a furry, then
Nazi furries.
Bestiality is not cool.
Bestiality
is busy all day.
No, it's the difference is like consciousness. Actually, is how we say.
Consent.
Consent and consciousness.
I'm being bad here, guys. Sorry.
You are. It's okay. It's all right. I'll forgive you. But no, I mean, it's just just the way Darth acts. It reminds me of this dude and like how shitty he was. Like we found out he could be. Like there's chat logs of him saying some of this like insane kind of that Darth is saying, and so yeah, it's really, really sad. And, I don't even know if it's worth engaging him, to be honest. Like, I don't think I wouldn't want to talk to him.
I wasn't born yesterday.
Quick question: Does it? I mean, I think I would largely agree with you on an assumption, which is that this isn't an act or at least a jacked up version of what he is in real life. Because most of us, we learn some kind of shtick for YouTube. We're performing, even if we're doing a news show, we're performing. Whatever we're doing, we're aware that there's an audience. Now, do you think he's really this way all the time, or do you think that this is entirely an act or somewhere in the? I mean, this is my first experience with him today, so I'm just.
I mean, I haven't interacted with him, and I'm going off of like obviously second, third hand because I'm listening. Like I said, I'm still going through like the interaction with Amy earlier today. I haven't even gotten to the section where he interacted with you, but my general thing, I think like he might amp it up a little bit, but he kind of comes off as something's not right there, he gives me very concerning vibes. It's almost like it wouldn't surprise me like if he was abusive in intimate relationships, kind of like bad vibes, you know what I'm saying?
His wife left him with his kids, so
yeah,
supposedly
so like
domestic abuse was the reason.
So
can I jump in?
It's concerning to me as somebody who's been in like my parents were. My dad was an abuser. Like some of my earliest memories are of my dad and mom fighting. Like it's to me like coming from my background where domestic abuse was present.
You know what? I have to just say I would never psychoanalyze someone. I can't do that. From not knowing.
Darth, it's easy.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not trying to go into it for a career. So
No,
you know,
for sure,
but I totally understand. Like, you know, we shouldn't be giving him diagnoses over the internet.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely, I could never say that about someone, but the fact that this guy actually brings people into his community and is abusive. He's abusive to the people in his community, and even the people that he communicates with outside of his community is interesting to me. It's very interesting.
I want to add in just one thing.
Oh,
because it was mentioned whether or not he is like that in real life. The only thing you have to do is look how much time he spends online. Online is his real life. He has
exactly
no
what I
other
was going
real
to say.
life.
Exactly what I was going to say. I mean, apparently he spends 8 to 10 hours a day online.
Jesus.
More.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
I feel like that's actually not bad. Like,
Well,
as far as like,
no.
it's
In
bad.
his chats, in his discords, 8 to 10 hours a day.
But if he's acting that way all the time online, and he's online that much, then one of two things I would assume needs to be true is that either that really is his personality and the central core of it, or he would like it to be. He doesn't feel in his real life capable of attaining that level of in his real life he can't project that way, but he can online, and so he's going online, which is actually scarier than the alternative.
Everybody grows a pair of balls.
There's a lot of speculation going on.
I have to be honest with all of you right now. You know, I'm a new fan to Leophilus. You know, I subscribe to him. Haven't seen him too long. Sunflower, first time I've seen you here. Actually, everybody except Amy and Leophilus. But why I say this?
Leophilius.
Leophilius. Sorry.
It's Leopelius.
Why I say this?
Danny, shut the fuck up.
Is because none of us should be giving fucking Darth Dawkins any time of day.
It's fun,
or any attention.
Other than hold on. A little caveat.
Any
A little caveat to that.
Olivia?
Other than making fun of him.
No, I mean, I think it's time to stop. I think it's time to stop.
Well, that's okay, because we're going to right now. We're going to transition it over to Sunflower, because we have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness. I hope you had an awesome time, Sunflower. And what are your final thoughts?
Oh, thank you. I actually really did have an awesome time. This was such a great conversation, honestly. Despite the fact that, you know, again, I'll be the first to admit, sometimes I do get a little loud, and I'm trying to not talk over people or whatever. But generally, this exchange discussion was really, really interesting, fruitful, thought-provoking. So really, yeah. And Amy, also, I would like to commend you on your moderating skills. I mean, it's no easy task to do what you did tonight, and of course, all the other times you moderate. But tonight, I'd noticed especially just when you have this many people, your patience and you know, you measuring when to kind of eventually butt in. And I really think that you did a fantastic job. Leo,
thank you so very much.
Yeah, no problem. Leo, as usual, you know, you have really great ideas, and you're very articulate. Also, I did watch your debate on socialism, and honestly, I think you knocked that out of the park too. I wouldn't identify as a socialist, but the way you articulate yourself tonight, that was some extremely compelling stuff. So as always, really interesting conversation, everyone. I'm going to continue to improve my own, you know, way I conduct discourse. But Danny, thanks for helping me out, articulating myself. Everyone, I think it's been really fruitful, awesome, and I have nothing but positive things to say. So thanks so much, and hey, I'll be back next time.
God doesn't exist.
Thank you so very much, Sunflower. And woohoo! And okay, I agree with him. It was a great conversation. I'm so glad we did this tonight. And okay, We are moving along. Leo, we have been skeptic and ranting about. I know we do it so often, just like the demons and alien babies episode that we do. It's a common thing. We're speaking consciousness. Hope you had a good time. What are your final thoughts?
Well, as it concerns consciousness, since that's the main subject of tonight's panel, tonight's discussion, I would say that I would say the same thing I said when I first came onto the panel, that consciousness, much like digestion, is a process that results from aspects of the physical body working in a particular manner. That the aspects of consciousness are themselves a result of those processes as well. So it seems to me that there really isn't a decent argument to be made against the physicalist perspective that consciousness is a result of physical processes occurring in the brain. That seems to be where all of the data points us. The vast majority, the overwhelming consensus of neuroscientists and cognitive scientists is in that direction. And in fact, the majority of philosophers of mind also generally take a physicalist perspective as it relates to the mind. So I started with a quote, and I'd like to end with a quote, this time from an article in Nature magazine, which is by Nature Journal. Quote, "It has become increasingly clear, however, that consciousness is not confined to only one region of the brain. Various cells and pathways are engaged, depending on what is being perceived or the type of perception that is involved. Investigating the coordination of neural signaling might help researchers to find reliable signatures of consciousness. In a 2019 study that collected fMRI, that's functional magnetic resonance imaging, data from 159 people, researchers found that compared with people in minimally conscious states and those under anesthesia, the brains of healthy individuals had more complex patterns of coordinated signaling that also changed constantly, which seems to indicate that what consciousness is fundamentally processes occurring in the brain, and that the more structured and collective, I guess you could say, or cooperative those processes are, the more conscious, I guess you could say, the being is, put simplistically."
No, the reason why I'm not letting you finish because you're fast talking. Blah, 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 blah.
Also, I did want to say I do have a YouTube channel. Surprisingly enough, you can find me at youtube.com/c/Leophilia, spelled the way that you see it on the screen.
If you want to listen to sensual language stylings.
Boom. And okay. And with that, thank you so very much, Leo. And I have to say,
Welcome back,
you're
man.
probably one of my best allies in this whole consciousness fight. I love
Yeah,
it.
it's hard to find people that take the correct view, I would say.
Yeah.
False.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, whatever, Danny.
Amy, that reminds me. I completely forgot something in my outro.
Oh, sure.
Can I?
Well, hold on.
So,
I think
I want to point out to people that this Friday, one of the people that is on this panel quite frequently, Atheist Junior, is going to debate Kent Hovind.
Oh snap!
Myself and a few others have done our best to help him prepare for this.
Whoa.
I think he's going to come out guns blazing, and I'm hoping that he's going to do well. We will have an after show for that on Amy's channel on Saturday. So I would suggest people to not miss any of those two. And
I heard
the debate is going to be on standing for something's channel.
Strangling the truth. No, strangling the truth. Did anybody else hear the sound bite that I heard?
I was trying to pretend.
It sounded.
What
like
was it?
You
Was
said
it
the
that?
N-word?
What?
Anybody else hear that, or was that just me? Because I definitely.
You are fake news.
What is that? Okay, we're gonna move.
I'm probably
moving
twice or
along.
3 times your age. Do you realize that?
Oh my gosh.
And Soldier, we have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness. My little brain buddies back there. I hope you had a good time. And what are your final thoughts?
He froze.
Oh, Soldier?
Sorry. Awesome show. Incredible guests. I
thank
really
you.
think I really think Danny had some great thoughts. I think his argument about not natural was kind of flailing, if you will. I think Sunflower's argument, not argument, but maybe distinction about phenomena versus brain states, that kind of got me stuck. I'll be honest with you. It's not that you didn't have the right argument. For me, I just got stuck on that because to me, I was trying to say, like, what does this have to do with the God? That in the entire time, that's what I'm thinking. What does this have to do with the God? And so
He doesn't believe in a God.
yeah. Oh, okay, fine. And then finally, I would like to say this was one of the best arguments. And with that said, Amy, I have to end on this. And if we really gotta love you now, and I think you should stop your crying. Here's my kerchief to dry your eyes. You know I love you too. Loves you.
Aww.
The Bible tells us.
Thank you so very much.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, fuck off. You're done.
I thought it was pretty. I think the but
God,
thank you so
the
very
peanut
much.
gallery is harsh.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm
goddamn.
jealous. How many people get serenaded? I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, God damn it.
And okay, thank you so very much, Soldier. And with that, we're moving on to Bird. Bird, we have been skeptic and ranting on consciousness. I hope you had a fun time. And what are your final thoughts?
I had a great time, and I can't follow that, so that's all I gotta say. I'm not even gonna try.
Don't even try, Bird.
Don't even try. No reason.
And okay,
We'll be back on
We're
Saturday
back.
for the big party.
Damn
Don't forget.
right.
I know.
I'll
I'm
be here.
excited.
Y'all are like making me
David.
choose between like my gaming tournament now and
Y'all.
like, god dang it.
Uh-oh, League of Legends.
That's not really a choice. This is Kent Hovind night.
Bye, David.
Hovind.
Bye, David. Buy my books.
I just want to go. I would just be like, yeah, Atheist Junior is a pretty cool dude, like in my interaction. So I just want to go to support him. Fucking Hovind.
He's a great dude. Ken Hovind's an idiot. So,
oh, that's my
James. Quick question: There's a party?
I would like to have
It's
a
a
role
party.
play.
oh boy,
Wow.
he's
And
invited
Tangelo,
too, and maybe he'll come on.
I will say I had a conversation with Tangelo.
Goes to Otangelo because he does a great acting job.
Which is so funny. It's just so funny. He's putting down the people who look up to him. That's besides the point. That's besides the point. Yeah, I
Even
had
when,
such a
when it was
lovely...
Oz and who was with Randolph, and Otangelo was actually being the reasonable one in the room.
This is the guy who's the head of Canadian Atheist.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever heard, and you're going to have to excuse me, folks, have you ever heard such a dumb fuck in your whole life?
Can I just say that it strikes me that, and I don't want to get too nuanced, but it seems to me that he might have an anger management issue.
Huh. You think?
Maybe.
Oh, come
When
on.
Otangelo is the reasonable one in the room, you're in
Well,
trouble.
and so I had a 45-minute conversation with Tangelo, and I swear Tangelo's point was just like, look, Darth, we can have conversations with the atheists. Look, I'm doing it here. I swear that's Tangelo's entire point.
To
You don't
be
have to
fair,
scream
to be
and
fair,
kill.
Otangelo so far is the only theist that I have seen attacking Darth in public and criticizing his behavior.
I've seen it several times too.
The
The
poor
point
little
that
peepee,
happens,
he's got to have
and-
him on his channel now.
And Otangelo will have the chance to talk about that on our new upcoming show, which
Excellent.
finally has a title. It's going to be called Crossing Channels. It's going to bounce back and forth between my channel and Otangelo's channel, where we go over Dawkins's propositions without Darth.
Oh my gosh. Oh
how
my gosh.
good can it get? And we're going to be talking about his behavior. Otangelo wants to make sure that people hear his opinion on that as well. So,
So go check that out, and we should have more atheist projects. So look at that.
That'll be a
some
good
people
show. I
just
can't
bring
wait
the
for
atheist
that.
and theist community together. I know. Okay, so we're moving along. Danny, we have been skeptic and ranting on. I was gonna say the big C word. I don't think that's what people think with that letter. But wait, C. I was going B word C cranium. I forget how that joke worked way better in my head. Danny, we're talking about consciousness.
Come on to me.
Oh my God.
I hope you had a good time. And what are your final thoughts tonight?
I did have a good time. Thank you. I have a channel. It's called Phil Talk. That's all I got.
Thank you, Danny.
Sweet.
Woohoo!
Nice to have you on.
I should have had everyone. I normally have my banners already. I feel like I got Danny's channel. Yes, I do. Boom, right down there. And all right, with that then, James,
Why do we need to do that?
Danny, do you have over 100 subscribers?
I think
The
I have
Bible tells
212.
us.
Get a custom URL.
I do have a custom URL.
Oh, that's probably my fault. I probably just
Amy didn't
went to
update
his
it, maybe.
channel and copied and pasted it.
I think it's the YouTube/C/Phil Talk.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
YouTube.com/C/Phil Talk.
Right, that's it.
And okay.
It's not youtube.com/ballgag.
Oh God.
Oh
You
wow.
wish.
Oh,
Danny knows about this. I'll let Danny explain.
So
Who
do
doesn't
I.
know?
Hey,
Wait,
Danny.
but who
How's it
doesn't
going?
know about this?
I know. I'm interested.
Oh,
Don't. No, we're not going there.
Danny.
Let's continue. Who's next on the outro list?
That's
Are you top?
Yeah.
I only
Oh
Wait a
half
minute,
know.
Leo.
That's a different
Leo.
podcast.
I'm married. That's
Leo,
what I am.
you're just afraid that I'm going to share the picture that you requested, right?
I didn't request any picture.
Yes, you did request
No,
that.
I did not.
Yes,
You're such
you
a
did.
liar. No. No.
And okay, James, we've been.
Danny looks good in a harness. I'm just saying.
Oh
Wow.
I wouldn't know.
You would have. You would ask though, right, Leo?
I did ask.
Listen,
I
let's
think
get
everybody's missing
two
the
birds
point.
with one stone. Danny, you want to go to a furry convention?
To be fair,
I'm a
the
man
only
right now,
person,
so.
the only person responding to the picture of Danny in a harness with "that looks kind of hot" was Danny.
It was pretty hot.
I just want to know if that was an
Tremendous
observation
stamina.
or an experience.
Both.
A little bit of both.
Good
Yeah,
experiences.
And hey, that's what we're unsupportive of here. James,
Why do we need to do that?
You want to
my.
listen? You want to
To
talk
keep
about
that gag in your
consciousness?
mouth, Amy.
And thank you
let's-
so very much, Danny. Oh my.
Yeah.
So what?
That's
I
a
hope
good
you have
good
fun.
image for Darth.
Listen, I'm going to ask you a question.
So, guys, well,
Why
thanks
are you
everybody for
acting
coming
like a
in.
snot-nosed 16-year-old?
I can't help it, Darth. I'm sorry. It's just who we are.
How old
know?
are you?
We're atheists. We're way
Why
older
is
than
he
you.
so concerned with how old people are? Can anyone
God
answer?
does not have morality.
God
No, he
does not
doesn't.
exist.
No, can I ask why is he so
So are
concerned
you
with
here
how
to
old
troll?
people are? God damn it.
Oh my gosh, guys, stop.
Can anyone answer that?
What was the question?
Because
Why
he has
is
no other argument.
Jesus Christ? Why is he so concerned with how old everybody is?
I don't know. That's a good
because-
question. He does ask kind of a lot.
I'm
'Cause-
probably twice or 3 times your age. Do you realize that?
Because he's trying to find someone that he can be a daddy to. That's why.
It's
He has a daddy
I
thing.
think by now he realizes that his only qualifications are that he's older than anyone else, and that's
appeal to
probably
the
It's
why
it's that whole respect your elders complex.
Yeah.
Or an appeal to authority. He's an authority figure, but vis-a-vis his age.
Or
so it's an
atheist,
appeal to
Garth.
authority.
Exactly. You don't need to know.
Sorry,
how
go
old
ahead,
we are.
James. I digress.
We're all digressing, but it's okay because we had a very productive conversation tonight. We nailed down consciousness. We know what it is now, so we can close that book and we can move on to other things. Right? Are we all satisfied with? We know now.
Hell
Why do we need to do that?
Well,
I
okay.
think
More psych talk, please.
Maybe we'll have a follow-up episode after. We'll let these
Maybe
ideas
one or
percolate
two.
for a little bit, and then we'll do round 2. But Saturday, once again, the big party, the big celebration, Atheist Junior versus Ken Hovind. It's tomorrow. No, it's not tomorrow. It's Friday night. Standing for Truth Channel, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Don't miss it. And then we'll be back
Strangling
Saturday.
the truth.
It's Fucus. What does that spell? All right, Newman, take it away.
I said it out loud in his channel too, and he was like, "No," and then he took a second. He's like, "Well, that doesn't matter."
Yeah, his acolytes jumped in there. Darth, F-O.
Oh my gosh.
He needs to focus. It's okay. He said
That explains why you have no
Oh,
capacity to focus.
He was
and
trying to
okay.
focus on what was going on in his lap. That was what he was worried about.
Woo-hoo. I wish they could focus.
We're going to have
If
to
they-
drop this thread because you literally have the mind of a 14. No, excuse me. I shouldn't insult 14. You have the mind of a 12-year-old.
Also, I like how he just dropped 2 years. I thought he was going to say 4-year-old the first time he said that.
Yeah.
And he dropped it by
That's-
2 years.
That is from your conversation with Darth, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, listen, Amy doesn't mind dressing up like in a play outfit. Listen,
Like I said,
she'll put a JoJo Siwa bow in her hair.
Like I said, I was hoping Gavin would debate me and we could have a whip and a pantsless party. But then, hey, who knows?
A show
I'm
and tell.
interested. Let's do it.
Okay.
Gavin has
No, wait. If it's
Amy-
a whip, instead of a whip, you need to
Amy-
just have a chastity device ready to go.
Oh my!
As long
Amy,
as I
have you
can whip
seen
and nay-nay.
Gavin has improved. He got
Has he?
pants for his last.
Did
debate.
he?
Yes.
Good for him. Yeah, I was
he
supposed to
got pants
debate
and-
him, but it got delayed into oblivion.
And a hoodie that he got off some 12-year-old to make him look young.
Oh, well, maybe it's
Hello,
the-
hello there, fellow kids.
He's down with it, Yo-Yo.
And okay, I hope you all had a fun time on this episode of Skeptic and Ranting Consciousness, where we took a deep dive on the topic of being conscious and rubbed our brains together to see if we can make sense of the whole thing. I want to thank James W. with our guest hosts, Danny, Bird, Soldier of Science, Jason Torn, Oz, Leo Felius, Mark Reed, Peter, Cassandra, Brainbug, and Nick, along with all the lovely people in chat and our awesome
Even the freak.
who make the stream so great. Exactly. We love all our theist brothers and sisters. We love you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that all button icon so you can be part of our live streams on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook.
Thank you,
And
Daryl.
if you'd like to help make more fun content, feel free to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Amy Newman. I'm Amy Newman. I'll see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z.
Woohoo! Woohoo!